Showtime on Death Metal Podcasts, coming at you live on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, and I don't know. This could be playing at a local laundromat for all I know. But we're live on YouTube at Death Metal Podcast. Subscribe, tell your friends, join in on talking and chats. We've been doing Death Metal Podcasts for I don't even know, live for maybe 8-9 months. Yeah, I don't, maybe a little longer. And then we did interviews or had live talks or whatever. And then sometimes I'll try to bring friends of mine on, or bands to play or rehearse, all kinds of stuff. So if anyone is interested, that's not subscribed or watching right now, and you got a friend and you want to share the link for you on our YouTube or whatever, or subscribe to our channel, you should, man. It's Death Metal Podcast. And everything on here is live. There's no scripted, not too much scripted stuff. Pretty much all, mostly death metal talk. Obviously, it's hard to just talk about death metal without talking about thrash or grindcore or black metal. So, So tonight we do have a guest. And this, to me, this is pretty special too, because I've known this person as long as hell, man. Long as hell, dude. I mean, when I was a young buck, I was listening to his 2-song demo with my thrash metal friends in a room, and we were like, what the fuck, man? Those vocals, dude, super brutal. So yeah, man. Want to say what's up to Brian Apt. I see him trying to text me in the middle of this. Shout out to Brian Apt. Shout out to Jim Stanek. And shout out to John McEntee, obviously. Death Metal Podcasts, again, we just go live. We talk death metal on here. Sometimes we have guests. Today I got a good guest that I'm friends with and I've known for a long time. So, I didn't come with too many, pre-canned questions, but I came with some old photos and some rare stuff as usual. So yeah, I'm going to invite our guest on. Thanks for everybody that does tune in to the channel, because I continuously see some of the same names popping up. Like my man right here, Francisco, from his channel, Jamming Out All Badass. Cheers to you, brother. Let's go, poppies and mommies. All right, so here we have it. This is an interview with Ross from Immolation. So here we go, bro. Death Metal Podcast wants to say hello to Ross Dolan, who's the singer from Immolation.
Hello. What's up, Roy? Thanks for having me on Death Metal Podcast. Good to be here.
Fuck yeah, brother.
And Roy is correct. We know each other probably since the late 80s. Since the time hanging out in the bridge. Where was that?
Oh yeah, Black Bridge.
Yeah.
I remember all of Immolation showed up.
And, totally. And that was probably through, I'm guessing through John, McEntee and the Incantation guys, probably around that time.
Yeah.
So
you guys wanted to come to our Kearney death metal party spot.
Kearney, that was the town. Yes, yeah. Kearney. I couldn't think of the name. Yep.
And well, then, we would go down those tracks, and there was bridges, and people would run across that trestle. It was a wild scene.
Yeah, but we became fast friends. I mean, we were all about the same music coming up, and we've been pretty tight throughout the years. So
yeah. For me, it was my journey was like a traveler of seeing your band and hearing your name, and then hearing your demo, and also seeing you live. Even before we became friends.
Sure.
So it was kind of I was a fan, seeing things or seeing flyers, and then going to see your band. And I was it was like for me very life changing because there was something about like Immolation that I want to say this straight out because like the vocals were like way lower than everyone else's, you know what I mean? So
Cool, cool.
it was
Yeah,
fucking to me, I was like, fucking hey, dude, what is this, you know?
I think the music was, I think, life changing for all of us. That's, I think I could speak for everybody when I say that. For all of us who came up back in that time, it definitely changed all of our lives. And regardless of which path we took, I mean, we just happened to, you know, we played and we were in the band, so we were on that path. But you took a similar path. I mean, supporting the music and just being involved behind the scenes
Yeah,
this
yeah,
whole time. So but we all came from the same, I think, origins, and it was, it's been a cool journey so far,
yeah,
and just so everybody knows, it's not uncommon for Roy and I to be on just a normal phone call for a couple hours, just talking probably about the same stuff we're going to talk about
yeah,
tonight.
exactly.
So the only difference here is like you guys are all joining us, and we have the video feature now.
Exactly,
You can see our
exactly.
ugly mugs.
Yeah, and me and Ross, we have been on those fucking 3 hour phone calls talking about like either old stuff we did or just
Absolutely.
whatever, man. I was texting Ross and I'm like, I'm canning food right now.
Totally, totally, totally.
So let's say what's up to some of the people that do tune into death metal podcasts all the time. What's up, Ross and Roy?
What's up?
What's up, Joe Pupo?
Hey, Joe, what's up, brother?
What's up, Left to Rot, Death Metal
What's
Maniacs? What's up,
going on?
Scooter? And what's up, Francisco? For sure.
What's
Immolate your
up?
soul.
And you mentioned, of course, Mr. McEntee, Brian, and
Brian and
Jim
Alex.
of the old crew. So, and who I run into once in a while. I haven't seen Jim for a little bit, but we ran into him a few times out in Vegas because he's out. I think he's out in Vegas, right? On the Vegas area.
He's living in Kentucky right now.
Oh, Kentucky.
Or
So that I'm going
Tennessee or
back.
something. Yeah, he
Okay,
moved
so
from Vegas.
So I'm going back a ways, but we see Joe all the time down in Texas. He came out to see us in February on the last run. So always good to see you, Mr. Pupo.
Nice. And I seen you not too long ago. I got this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We were at
We
Maryland.
were
That
at
was awesome.
Maryland Death Fest.
That's right. It was nice to have that back. Especially the outdoor stages, the Edison lot stages. It was, it was cool. It was cool to bring that back after a couple of years of absence.
Hmm. Yeah, it was cool. It was. There was a lot of people there. It was banging.
It was awesome. Always a good time, man.
You guys were playing in the sunlight. I remember, it was like blaring on your asses.
Please. Yeah. We called that like we knew we were playing the Sunday outdoor stage, and we all called it. We're like, it's going to be right as the sun's setting, and
You knew it.
yeah, I knew it. So yeah, that was a challenging one that day. It was super hot up there, as you can imagine.
Yeah,
it was fun. It was a good.
yeah, because it's hot on the ground, and then you guys are doing your thing. And,
Sure, yeah, it's like a big parking lot, so yeah, very little shade.
yeah, and then you got
Yeah,
you
yeah,
guys looked hot. It was
good,
like,
yeah, good
but
times.
didn't affect your performance at all.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks.
So no problem. Listen, we got to say early on here that these guys got a tour coming up with Cannibal Corpse.
Yes.
So here's the flyer for it. You guys check
Yes.
it out in your city.
Yes, totally
Alex,
psyched about that.
yeah, Alex said you guys would. He told me I don't know about Albany, and I said, yeah, that sucks because that's my spot. And then I saw him like Albany.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. We're playing some different, cities this time, which is nice. Yeah, I mean, we're just psyched in general because, as you guys know, we've toured with Cannibal like so many times over the years. We've known those guys since the beginning as well, and they're just one of the nicest bands to tour with. They've always treated us like gold on every tour. And we're good friends, mutual respect there. We love the guys, so we're really looking forward to that. Dark Funerals on this one, which will be awesome. We did 2 shows with them a couple of years back in Australia, and it was awesome. Yeah, we got to spend a couple of days with the guys. Fucking awesome band, good guys.
Yeah.
and Black Anvil, who we're really good friends with from Brooklyn, who we
Yeah.
toured with back in 2019. I'm sorry, on the
Right.
Mayhem. Was it 2019? Sorry, 2017. Getting my dates confused. So, and then we did some dates with them at the end of this run we did in February. So they
Right.
jumped on when Imperial Triumphant jumped off. So,
Right.
so good friends with those guys. Awesome dudes. So I'm looking forward to the tour, not only because of the caliber of bands, but because of the people involved.
Right.
All good people.
These are
So
your friends.
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah, that's got to make a tour easier, right? When you know the people on it, and there's no like loose cannons.
it does, man. It really does. And we've been fortunate over the years, and I've said this a million times. We've always had really good experiences on pretty much every tour. So, and we're pretty easygoing, so we could adapt to any kind of situation, be it good or slightly going afoul.
Right.
so, so we'll hang in there, and try to do the right thing. So anyway, but yeah,
Yeah,
this will be a good one.
that's cool, man. Yeah, that's it's good to see bands hitting the road again. I notice a little resurgence in
Yes,
death metal. There's like a lot of younger cats out there.
absolutely, man.
There's a lot more females. I noticed there's a
Yes.
lot more like
Yeah, man.
there's a lot more
Castrator,
fans.
man. Fucking Castrator. You mentioned female bands. We're tight
Female
with them.
bands too.
Yeah,
Female
yeah. All
fans and
female
bands.
bands. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and there is, and you and I had this talk the other day over the phone. Like a huge resurgence of like just the good old school sick death metal that we came up, enjoying and taking our cues from,
Oh yeah.
So the whole like I'd say the last 10 years, like the bands that have come out, and we've talked about this up in the northwestern like corner of the country, all killer stuff. We've had an opportunity to share the stage with a lot of these bands, and I
Right.
think it's awesome, man. Personally, to see like the young blood of our scene really just killing it, like writing just sick
Well,
death metal the way it was
yeah.
meant to be
That
written.
was feel you know what? When we were talking the other day too, like I felt really good when I was getting off the phone with you because like
Yeah,
we're on the same page as far as like some of the newer bands. And
hell
like,
yeah,
I'm kind of like one of those like never left the demo and underground guy and a
sure,
tape guy or whatever the fuck it is.
absolutely,
Not that I don't buy CDs or vinyl because I fuck
yeah,
with those too, but
sure,
like for some reason I'm like this like really still checking out like bands demo tapes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you seem like, you were we were comparing notes a little and you listen to some of the same bands as I do.
Yeah, because I'm not, it's not like it was back in the 80s where we were heavily involved in the tape trading scene
Right.
and that underground network pre-internet, where you really had to, you know, work at it to keep in touch. And we were writing letters constantly, if you remember, ordering demos, ordering
Sure.
shirts, just keeping the correspondence up with, like-minded bands in our genre from all over the planet, really. So, obviously for me now I'm not as involved as I was then, but I still look at all the online metal sites, and
Right.
I see what's up and coming, and I listen to stuff, and if I like it I buy it. I'm still a physical guy as far as like I like physical product. I'll still buy
Right.
CDs. I always buy vinyl, especially of like the younger bands now. Everybody's putting out vinyl now, and I think that's great. All of my earlier stuff from the mid '80s up until I don't know sometime in the mid to late '90s, it's all vinyl. So
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
nice to see that come back in a big way because I always loved the sound of the vinyl, and just there was something about having a record, taking it
Mm.
out, and I don't need to go through this with you. You know
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what I'm talking
You
about.
got a special little area that you do it
Yeah,
or
yeah, we got we had an unfinished basement when Shelly and I moved up here, and we had since finished the basement. We created like a bar, like a metal bar, So we have all our cool metal collectibles from all around the world, tour passes, posters,
yeah,
and a little vinyl corner with all my vinyl, and some of her vinyl mixed in. So we have all of our stuff together. We have our
nice.
record player right on top, and then I have a stack of all new vinyl I haven't kind of put in
Yeah.
yet or listened to yet.
Well, yeah, I have that too because sometimes like I'm like I have to be in the right mood to listen to this too because I want to
Sure.
listen to it like thoroughly, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the digital age, can make you lazy. Like I'm quick to go on Spotify. So if I read something online about a band, I'm like, wow, this looks interesting. It sounds like something that's up my alley. I'll go right on Spotify, find the band and listen to it because you could do that with pretty much
Yeah,
everybody. Even like the younger bands only have EPs out or whatnot. You can find anything on there. So I'll usually check that out first. And if it's gold, then I have no problems. I'll order vinyl, I'll support the bands, I'll buy the CDs,
dope.
whatever.
That's
So
dope.
yeah, I'm still involved in that sense because I
That's
I
cool.
still love the music. So,
Yeah, not all band members are like that. Some band members just once they get in a band, they just don't buy anything.
yeah, no, I'm pretty obsessive about that.
Yeah,
I got too much stuff actually.
so
So
am I. So am I. And then it becomes like a little bit of a hindrance too. And it's like, fuck, dude. But I mean, at the same time, I figure this is the way I look at it in the big picture. I'm like, well, some of this stuff's just a rental, you know?
yeah, well, yeah,
And then, maybe I'll pass it along to someone else that wants it too, especially if
yeah,
I'm not listening to it. There's some stuff that's not a rental, it's there for life, basically.
yeah. Honestly, I I I would probably have a hard time parting with any of that stuff because it it's a big part of who I am. It's a good um I don't know, it almost chronicles my teen years right up into the present. You know what I'm saying? All those
Yeah.
earlier bands, were that was the soundtrack to my youth, kind of, without sounding corny. But it
Yeah.
it truly
Totally.
was. I mean, that was the stuff that we would all turn to when you were not having the best of days or the best of times, or when you were going through some personal shit at home, or whatever. This was the stuff that allowed me to kind of disappear into the world that I love going to, and
Yeah.
so.
That's
And
cool, man.
yeah, I mean, so I can't part with any of that. I have all my demo. I got a huge crate of the old demos that I still
Nice.
have: vinyl, CDs, flyers, posters. I mean,
Yeah, Alex was up at your house. He told me he was having like a little demo party with you. I was like, fucking demo party, huh?
yeah. Well, it's great because when Alex comes up to visit, like, when my girl goes to sleep, we'll just sit up at night for hours and just go on like YouTube and just find, hey, let's check out the Abhorrence demo from the fucking late '80s, or let's check out
Yeah.
this demo, Slaughter Lord, or whatever it was, Dr. Strinker. We'll just find all kinds of obscure stuff, find it online, and just listen to it and talk about it and just
Yeah.
reminisce. It's so fun to do that.
All right, let's hit the chat a little bit. There's a lot of people that want to say what's up to you, Ross. Let's see here. Let me go back a little bit. So, what's up, Scott Corber? How you doing?
What's up, guys?
Let me see. What's up, John Grave? Cheers to Ross for hopping on. Killer
What's up?
albums. You're a legend.
Hey, man, thank you so much. I
One of
don't
the
feel
most
legend.
influential demos ever.
Awesome.
Fuck yeah, dude. I believe that too. Come back to Providence.
Yes. Hopefully soon. I don't even know the routing. I feel ashamed to even say. I know we're playing in Albany, because we just talked about it. I know.
Come to Albany, bro. We'll hang out,
Right.
right?
That's Chile. We got
Salutes from Chile.
nice.
So, hey, what's up, JD?
What's up, man?
Hail the old school. Immolation is king.
What's up, man? Thank you, brother.
I wonder if his mom remembers Roy calling him.
Ah,
Oh, because I mentioned this the other day. We were talking.
probably so. My mom's got a good memory. She's in her 90s. She's in her like in 92.
See that?
But she's pretty sharp, man. I mean, she remembers a lot of my friends. We played at the end of that February run. We did a show in New York City, and my mom came out to that. My aunt, my uncle, Bob's family came out to that. So
It's
it was
beautiful.
it was awesome. But during the course of the night, so many people would say, "Oh," and come up and say hi to my mom, and she's like, "Oh, wasn't that so and so?" Or, "Oh, who was that?" And I'll say the name. She's like, "Oh, wow, they look so different," because she remembers everybody, in their
As a kid.
teens. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so for her, it's fun just to. I guess she gets a kick out of the fact that all these people from back then are still in some way connected or
Yeah.
involved, just like us.
We're a
You know?
fucking family, bro.
We
It's
are,
like
we are.
weird extended family, like metalheads. Like a lot of metalheads become this extended, like it's an international one too, which is
It
even
is.
cooler.
And that's a good, and that's how we kind of describe it. And it's funny you said that. We went out to Cycle Vegas a couple of weeks back, just as fans to enjoy, yeah, Shelly and I.
Right,
And we went out with Dan and Heather Lilker because Nuclear Assault was playing. So we all kind of, because he lives up here as well. We're pretty tight. And we all kind of went out together. We had spent a few days because it was great. Had to see, Merciful Fate, man. It was just
right,
epic. So, but a lot of great bands played. I mean, not just Fate. I mean, it was there for the whole weekend. But anyway, we were hanging out and we were talking about how cool it was to have music back in that way, where after the pandemic years where you didn't have anything and we were walking around and it was a bunch of us, and I remember
right.
we were talking about, wow, it just feels good to be here. And it was I think it was John Connolly from Nuclear Assault was like hanging out with us, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I feel comfortable here, this is like my family, or something to that effect. And I said to him, yeah, man, you fucking nailed it. It's true. I mean, this is like our extended family, and
Right,
we always feel comfortable at shows, no matter where they are in the world. When you're
right.
at a show, you feel like you're home. And that was the gist of that conversation. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but that's
No,
kind
that's
of,
cool, man. I mean, it's
but it
true.
was but it was a cool moment. And this is coming from a guy, like Danny and John and the Nuclear Assault guys. I mean,
Right.
that was my first underground show, and I've told this story many times before, but it was
Tell it here, brother.
it was Exodus at Lemoore back in, I think, '86, if you remember that. They were headlining, and
Okay.
Nuclear Assault, Carnivore, Blessed Death, and I think Agent Steel were the opening bands. So that was my first real underground show, going to Lemoore in Brooklyn, which was like the place for the younger listeners. Lemoore in Brooklyn was the club, that had all the bands back in that era, all the '80s bands, all the sick thrash bands, from Possessed to King Diamond to uh who else do we see there? Whiplash, local bands, and Blood Feast, and At
First entry,
War. What's that? And Creator and Voivod, and all these bands
first
performed there.
order. My bad. First order.
Yeah, so it was like, it was really, the venue back in the day. So
Let me ask this question. Like before the Lemoore came, or before you wanted to go to that show, I don't know how old you are. How old were you? Like 14,
that
16?
was that was August '86, because I remember Exodus did an in-store signing at Slip Disc Records. Remember that back
Yep.
in Long Island? So we went out to that during the day, got them to sign our Bonded by Blood vinyl, and then we went to the show right afterwards.
Back
So
then, let me ask, like back then, or you getting into like death metal or let's just say metal in general, like where
yeah,
would you pinpoint that? Like were you
at that time, well, that was '86. I was 16. I hadn't.
yeah, so
I was
say going back a little further, like where would you pinpoint that you were like kind of getting into metal and death metal, and not death metal, but more like the
more
thrash, I
just
guess
metal.
thrash or metal.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely some years before that. I was already starting to get into years before that, like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath,
Yeah,
stuff like that. Early Def Leppard. I liked a lot of classic rock, Pink
right.
Floyd and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. And I liked a lot of soundtracks. I used to listen to soundtrack going back when I was much younger. I used
Right.
to have all kinds of, like, whatever, especially sci-fi soundtracks.
Especially Grease.
Oh, Grease, hell yeah, yeah, for real. I remember when we were in
I
school.
listened to it too.
I had the record, I listened to the record all the time. And you remember they used to have the Scholastic books at school. You used to order the books and you used to get them. And it was like, there was a Grease one that had like the whole movie, but like written out like in almost comic book form. Yeah. So yeah, of course, man. I mean, that was, that was
Yeah,
'70s. But so yeah, I think those were the earlier bands. Maiden and Priest were definitely like heavy hitters for me. I mean, that
right.
was like
Was there
Steve.
ever that moment for the thrash where it's just like you bought the record, you thought it sounded like Iron Maiden, and you're like, "Oh, whoa."
Yeah, I mean, I I don't know exactly where to pinpoint that exactly, but it was probably stuff like Motorhead and early Metallica, Kill 'Em All, Into
Right.
Ride the Lightning, uh, Anthrax's first record, Raven, stuff
Sick.
like that was kind of taking into a heavier direction. Venom, of course, I can't forget Venom. Venom was
Right.
a big deal. Slayer. the problem is when we have these chats, I always neglect to mention like some like key bands that were always like big players in my kind of evolution. And Venom was definitely one of them. Slayer was one of them. You can't neglect like bands like Dark Angel or even later on like Sadist from the West Coast or
Right.
Autopsy. That's like earlier death metal scene. But even before that, thrash had its different kind of geographical centers. So you had like the German thrash, which to me
Right.
in the 80s was always, I think, those how to put this, like those are more the bands that I think inspired us to go that darker, heavier, more aggressive path,
Right.
because those are the bands that are almost bordering on like thrash leading into death metal, like early Creator,
Yeah.
Endless Pain and Pleasure to Kill, all the early
The
Sodom.
vocals were just cracking like one extra little level.
Sick, but they were sick though. Destruction, Infernal Overkill, especially, just sick,
Right.
dark album. So all this stuff, early Celtic Frost and Hellhammer, that stuff to me was all precursors to like our movement. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
then you had out of that Possessed, which to me was the band that kind of defined that to me. You know what I'm saying? And later on, of course, you had Death. And there's always that debate, like, whoa, who was the first death metal band? Was it Death or Possessed? For me, it was Possessed, and then shortly after, it was Death. But Possessed was the band for me that they had the image, they had that sick, haunting sound on Seven Churches, which was very unique at the time. And I don't know if you remember, but back when Seven Churches came out, they were really compared a lot to Slayer, like, oh, Slayer clones and this and that. And I never saw that connection. Slayer was their own thing, man. Slayer was unique in their own way, and I love
Right.
Slayer, and I hold them up very high. But I thought what Possessed was doing was completely different. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Just like you could argue, for me, like Bathory was the band that kind of defined like black metal to me. Obviously I don't, not everybody has to agree with me, but when
Right.
I first heard that first Bathory album, I was like, wow, this is just sick in a different way. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. Were you ever
So,
like me that possibly like at the moment you were just like you couldn't kind of like comprehend it fully? Because that happened to
um,
me with like Napalm Death when I first heard it. I was like, what the fuck?
Well,
You know?
yeah. Well, some stuff required a lot of like multiple listens. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like when I first heard, for example, like when you first put on "Pleasure to Kill," when the first song after the intro is a ripping corpse,
Right.
fucking that comes on and it's just like just chaotic and just crazy. Remember production values back then were not what they are today.
Right.
So but I think that added to that sense of like controlled chaos that a lot of those bands had back then. And when you heard that stuff like that for the first time, you're like, "What
Dude.
the fuck?
And
What the
yeah,
fuck?"
a
But
little stupefied, right? Like, what the fuck was
well,
that?
but even like when I first heard Ride the Lightning, I heard Kill 'Em All prior to that. But when I first got Ride the Lightning, I bought it like when it came out, like the day it came out. And I remember taking the bus home from school. I went to my aunt's house because she had the killer stereo. My stereo wasn't as killer. So I went to her house after school carrying the fucking Ride the Lightning vinyl. I was like, hey, you mind if I use your stereo? And she's like, yeah, go ahead. And I just fucking hung out up there and I cranked that shit with the fucking vinyl, listening to that. When Fight Fire came on, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck is this? So
Right.
to me, that was extreme back in the day, and
Right.
I had never heard anything like that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So there were a lot of different things back then that kind of led to that progression into what I got into. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint because
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was a very
It's a very progressive little thing. It's like you go
yeah,
from like listening to just rock to heavy
sure,
metal to like thrash, power metal, like it just
e-
like kind of creeps up this little slope.
exactly,
I
and
could see what you're saying about the German and the creators and the
yeah,
instructions. They were like touching these little bases with their productions and with their vocal styles and maybe even some of the drum beats that were
even
kind of like a little fucking different.
they were barbaric, they were like early Sepultura barbaric, you know what I'm saying? Like early
Right.
Igor Cavalera, just barbaric sounding, just sick, pummeling. And that's what attracted me to that stuff, the rawness of it. It was just honest and raw. They didn't give a fuck, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what attracted me to it. It was just sick. So yeah, man, I hold all those bands in high regard just because they kind of laid that foundation, for what later turned into our scene.
Right.
So
Would you say that, like, being that, like, I also was like more of like an album and cassette guy or whatever was the format back then. But like, when did this come into your zone? Like this type, these guys,
oh, autopsy or early death. Well, you got
death.
Chuck and Chris there. So, well, yeah. I mean, I think I heard probably through tape trading. I got some of the demo stuff, so they were on my radar. But
Okay. How'd you
I
get into tape trading? Like, did you buy some fanzines and like someone wrote to you, or
yeah.
you had a friend in the neighborhood who had a few demo tapey type things, or
Well, what happened was, if you remember, like a lot of the just mainstream metal mags would have like pen pal
right,
sections in the back, and there would always be
pen bangers,
yeah, and there would always be like a person or two who would be on there. Hey, if you're into, and they would just name like some of the stuff you're into, and then some
right?
other stuff that you were intrigued. Like, what is that?
What is it?
So between that, and we had a couple of early fanzines we were able to get at a local record store called Mad Platters at the time, and then
Okay,
our friend Tony Pradlick opened up a store right across street called Rock and Rex when Mad Platters dies. But those two stores were the stores that we would discover a lot of stuff at locally instead of
nice.
having to go into Manhattan. So there was a fanzine called Sledgehammer Press. Do you remember that?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, and that was like, I don't know where it was based out of. I'm assuming New York, but
Right,
that one, and there was you remember they used to have the little like half size fanzines. There was another
digest
one.
size. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were a couple of those floating around, and I learned about a lot of stuff from those magazines. They'd
Right,
have interviews with, like, let's say Slayer or Possessed, and you'd have like sick pictures of Quorthon from Bathory,
right.
and they'd always be like, hey, right, there'd be a
So it'd
band
be
you
a
never
fucking
heard of.
address there.
Yes, yeah. And so you'd write to these bands, and same thing with the pen pal section. So I wrote to a guy from Texas, um, who was a tape trader, and it was one of those deals like, hey, if you're fans of Slayer and this and blah 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 blah, you know. And he had a list of some things he had. So it was a deal. You sent $5 and like two 90-minute tapes or something like that, and he would record a
Oh
ton of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, that scene. I remember those things.
Remember that? So
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
happened. So this dude that I wrote to for my first time out sent me back like extra tapes. So he sent me like my two back plus three more, chock full of stuff, with
Mm,
everything written down, like the bands and the songs. And so that's where I was initially ordering like, some live Slayer stuff, some live Venom
right.
stuff that he had, but he sent me, the first unreleased Morbid Angel record, the Abominations of
Mm,
Desolation record. So it was the first time I heard them, and I was like, wow, what the fuck is this? And there was
right.
a lot of stuff on those compilations that he sent me that kind of like Executioner, pre pre obituary. Yes, I was getting
Right.
confused. Execution pre obituary. There was Ravage on there, which became Atheist.
Atheist.
So a lot of that early demo stuff, some of the death stuff. So all of that stuff was on there.
Nice.
And just for me
Cool.
to kind of go through and just discover. So that's kind of how it started. But
Nice.
then when the band started, Andrew from Rigor Mortis, who we kind of, Rigor Mortis kind of dissolved, and Immolation, started from that point.
Yeah, like before we get to that,
Yeah,
like how did you were you friends with the guys and then
yeah.
like you were friends with say guys who were in rigor mortis or something, or did you go to school together or
Yeah, so let me just cap off that last one. So yeah, so that's how I just wanted to make the point that Andrew Sack from Rigor
right.
Mortis had a fanzine at the time too called The
Oh,
Chapel, and he had a couple of issues, and I would get those for him. So
sick.
between that and when the band started, that kind of forced us to get more involved, and we reached out to fanzine, sending our demo out, and then that network just exploded from there. So anyways,
Right,
that's to cap off
right.
how I got into a lot of the stuff, but I knew Andrew first. Andrew lived on the other side of Yonkers. Me and the crew that I was in, hung out in a different part of Yonkers. And Will from Mortician was a tight friend of mine since we were like 12 or 13 when we first met.
Cool.
And we kind of started hanging out with this other bunch of guys that we knew. Up Central. We were called the Central Crew because we hung out up at Central Avenue.
Oh,
So we'd hang out. A good friend of ours, Vic, him and his family always, had, allowed us to hang out there. So that was our kind of meeting point. So we had our crew there, and Andrew used to come and hang out with us because he knew some of those guys from school. I went to a different school, so I didn't go to school with any of these guys. I just knew them from, from hanging out.
hmm,
So that's how I met Andrew. So Andrew would come up and hang out with us every once in a while. He'd go to shows with us. He came out to the Celtic Frost show with Voivod, first time Celtic Frost came to the U.S. So he hung out a lot, and I wasn't aware that he was in a band.
right,
Will and I were hanging out one night with our old school jam box, the old cassette players, and Sack was with us. If I say Sack, that's Andrew. Andrew
right,
Sackowitz. We called him Sack to clarify. So Sack was hanging out, and he said, "Hey, you guys want to check out my band's demo?" And we were like, "Yeah, sure." So he put on, the Decomposed demo. I'm
right.
not sure if it was the complete 3 songs, but it was definitely Relentless Torment, the first song off of that.
Rigor Mortis decomposed demo.
Yeah, and that was the first song off of that start out with a bass intro, and Andrew comes in with this sick scream, and then his vocals were super guttural at the time, and I was
Right.
like, "Holy shit!" I say, "This is you? Holy fuck, this is sick!" And at that point, I was like, "Wow, this is," and I'm thinking like, all the stuff we're listening to is like super sick, and then I heard that, and I was like, "Wow, this is like even next level,"
Mm,
So that's how I discovered Rigor Mortis, and from there, we'd go down to their rehearsal. They rehearsed in New Rochelle, which was very close to Yonkers, and they had a monthly rehearsal space there. So myself and my friend Steve McPartlin and our friend Vic and all of us would go down and see Rigor Mortis rehearse.
nice.
There, I met Bob and Tom and the original drummer Dave
Right.
Wilkinson, who sadly passed away a couple of
Rest
years
in
ago.
peace, Steve.
Yeah, Dave was awesome, awesome dude. But anyway, so that's how I met those guys. So yes, I was friends with them, and and I would go to their rehearsals quite frequently because I just love to hear it. Like for me, being in a rehearsal room was like just the next step. I was like, wow, because I had never really been in a situation where I'm in a room with my friends playing live music. Only once before, and
Right.
that was like playing like Van Halen covers and shit like that. So this was like the real deal. So I was so inspired just by that experience that when Andrew left the band, just because he just kind of wanted to pursue other things, they immediately asked me to jump in and fill in for him
Wow.
and
Cool.
play bass originally for Rigor Mortis, which was only was super short lived because we never really did anything. We started writing new material and decided we'll change the name because I think we felt Andrew may have continued on and wanted to use the name, so we just started new. We changed the name to Immolation.
Right.
We didn't use any of the Rigor Mortis material. We were already writing, songs like Immolation was the first song we wrote, and Dawn of Possession and Burial Ground, and those songs
Right.
were the first ones we wrote. So that's how it started. So we started rehearsing as Immolation with myself, Tom Wilkinson, Bob Vinya, and Dave Wilkinson originally was the first official Immo lineup.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool.
that's how that started.
And you guys made this demo eventually?
Yep, that's the first demo with the old fish logo.
But by then, Neil Boback had joined the.
Yeah. Dave was in the lineup only for a couple of months. So he did rehearse some of those earlier songs with us.
Right.
And then I don't think he wanted to be in a band anymore.
Did he play on any of the shows, or was that
No,
just Neil?
no, it was Neil. Neil did every show with us in the beginning.
Okay.
Dave stepped out. It was all positive, and he just didn't want to do it anymore. He would still come down and hang out, and we loved
Right.
Dave, and he was
Sure.
still part of the family. But we had Neil now, and Neil really never played drums before until he started playing with us, and
Right.
he would jump on Dave's kit because it was already in the rehearsal space. Dave was kind enough to leave it there, so Neil would jump on, and man, the kid had a knack for that. He just kind of knew what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? So he
Yeah.
eventually bought his own kit, and he started to excel because we were fanatics. We practiced like every night, not because we
Nice.
sucked and needed to get better and better, but because there was something cool about it. It was
Something to do.
something to do. It was very cool. Our friends would come out on a Friday and Saturday night and hang out. It was like a party, but we had
Yeah.
fun playing music we like to play.
And even Neil made his name onto one of the flyer things. So I guess Neil was
Yeah.
one of the connections if you
Well,
wanted to get an Immolation demo.
no, that was the very first flyer that you just showed because that had Neil's home address on that.
Yeah.
We later changed that because we got a PO box address because then the volume of mail started coming in was a little excessive. So we got a PO box, and then we would have our mail nights where we'd get together and the four of us, and we just sit at Bob's dining room table
Right.
from like midnight to like 4 or 5 in the morning and just respond to correspondence from mail letters that we had received for the last couple of weeks, and we just kind of write to people, send out demos, whatever,
Right.
you know.
Was
So
it like fans? Was it like bands and fans?
both,
Both. Right.
yeah. So it was at that point it was mostly fans who were ordering the demo because they saw the ad or read the article in in
Right.
a fanzine. But a lot of it was fanzines reaching out for interviews, and that would take forever because we were at like handwriting interviews. It'd
Right.
take forever. Um, and there were bands. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, we were corresponding with Autopsy. You know, when '87 demo came out, and then Critical
Right.
Madness came out in '88. Bob actually went out and spent time with them in like '88. So we were tight with them. We were corresponding with Sadis back when Illusions first came out. We ordered the vinyl from them. We were corresponding with Nihilist, Pre-Entombed, Dismember, all the Swedish bands. You know,
Right.
we had we were corresponding to a lot of bands at the time who Cannibal Corpse, all these bands who
What about
later
Morbid Angel?
Morbid Angel. Well, yeah, Morbid Angel. In a crazy story, like Trey called me up in like mid '88 because they wanted to set up some shows in
Right.
New York. And he got my number from Kim August, if you remember, did Ultimatum fanzine.
Right.
And she was actually one of the first fanzines to reach out for us when our demo came out, the very first, you know. And Laurent from Listenable Pear Drop used to write for USD magazine, and he was the first European person to write to us.
Okay.
So those were our first two contacts, you know, after the demo was released. So I have a good memory for that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
you know, especially since they were the first people to reach out to us. So anyway,
You never forget your first.
yeah, exactly. But Kim August facilitated that, you know, phone call with Trey and I, and we set up, as you know, a couple of shows back
That
in
turn
'88.
into something like this.
Exactly.
Oh, this is actually with.
No, that was yeah. Let me see. That was
It would be
different.
more like this, right?
That's it. No, let's
Or
see. Hang that. Leave that up there for a second. Where is that? Does it say?
this was in Jersey, I believe.
Okay, so that was at Escapades. So we did 3 shows. We did Streets and Neuro Show was the first show.
Was this the first show? This one?
That was we did that was after the Morbid Angel shows. Morbid Angel came
Okay.
I think in October. Death was in December. So
Wow.
all around that time. And I think the next year we brought Napalm Death to New Rochelle. You know, it was their
Right.
first time playing in the
We're
US.
gonna get to that.
Yeah. I know I'm jumping ahead. I'm trying to
No. I mean, this is all part of the history, and back then, this was the lineup too. You had,
that was us.
you know, yeah, long-haired guys. Ross
sporting my
hair was
benediction.
half had the size only then, but yeah, even
Sporting
Neil
my-
Boback back there.
Sport my benediction shirt. We just saw those guys in the UK a couple of weeks ago. Met up with Dave Ingram. Dercada. I mean, Nihilist. Yeah, all classic stuff.
Yeah. And like some of these demos, I just pulled these up because they were like chilling out. Like, did these have like a little bit of impact on you guys?
Oh, of course, dude. Yeah, we listened. That demo was like nonstop.
Obviously, you
constantly.
mentioned that one.
Yeah. But yeah, the demo was just fucking insane. Like that was just on a constant loop. I mean, that was really hugely inspirational. And then when we met those guys, and they were actually, you know, because they came up in a big school bus, you know, and they had John from Necrovore. John D. Crochet from Necrovore was actually doing sound for them. So we got to meet him as an added bonus on that trip, who was an awesome dude. And Necrovore, you know, hugely, you know, inspirational band for the time. Just sick stuff. But anyway, without getting ahead of myself. So yes.
Couple of shows with Morbid Angel. There's like 3 shows. You guys connected.
3 shows. And they were super inspiring to us because just their work ethic was just next level. I mean, those guys were not only super tight and super pro, you know, they were rehearsing for these shows in our studio because they were here for 2 weeks and they did 3 shows. They did 1 show one weekend, 1 show the following weekend, 1 show the following weekend.
Oh, okay.
So it was like that kind of deal. You know, the Sundance in Long Island was, I believe, the last show. But anyway, so they were up here for some time and they were staying with us. We were hosting them and they had a big tour school bus that they made into a tour bus. But
Right.
they would rehearse at our rehearsal space in the in between time. And man, that was just so inspiring to us. I mean, they really had it together. And that was one band that we were like, wow, when they left and they went back home,
You guys started rehearsing super hard.
we were like, we gotta get our shit together because we are sloppy and shitty and suck ass. So we had that moment also when we went over to Europe the first time in '89. I don't want to
Yeah, I
jump
wanted to
ahead.
talk about that.
Okay,
What was that? What was that? Because there's like this. There's a tape with you guys. You played like a one song in like France or something. And
we
like,
we
what was
did,
that about? The whole band went to Europe in
yeah,
'89. Why?
we
You didn't play
decided
shows, right?
no, we decided, we were, we had the first demo out, the second demo had just come out, and we were like, man, it'd be cool to go over visit Europe and visit some people that we're in touch with, because I mean, we were, really good pen pals. Like I wrote to Johnny from Unleashed, who was in a nihilist at
Right,
the time, like religiously all the time. Neil wrote to Nikke from Entomb, back and forth. Like so, it was like a weekly correspondence. So we were like friends through the mail. So we were like, let's
right.
go visit these people.
Wow, back
Let's
then, dude.
yeah,
Holy fuck!
yeah. We were like
The whole
fucking
band, though.
we were like 18, dude, and we were like,
Yeah.
fuck it. So we were all working. So we saved up. We went to a travel agent, like my mom's travel agent. She's like, you go see my travel agent, tell them what you
Uh huh.
want to do. And yeah, we booked our flights and we got in touch with all these people. Laurent from fucking Listenable. We went to UK first because we were intending to meet Digby from Earache Records, and we met up with Mick Harris, old drummer from Napalm Death, and Barney, who was in Benediction at the time. We met them in the UK. We spent some time in the UK. Then we went to France, hung out with Laurent from Listenable, and through him and Chris Orbert, I believe, and somebody else, they actually hooked us up at a show at the Jeebus Club in Paris,
Right.
and we were. They allowed us to play. It was Tankard, Massacre from France, and maybe another band, and they let us go up and play a song in between
Wow.
those two bands
I
on their.
knew it was Massacra, but I never knew
Yeah,
Tankard also.
Tankard was headlining from Germany, and they were all super cool. And we were just like some kids in town, and they're like, "You guys got to get up there and play a song." And
Wow.
we were not expecting that. We were not going over there with any intention to play. So we went up there, scared as hell, in front of a huge crowd in Paris, and played Immolation. We were supposed to play a few songs, but because of time, it was in between bands. We only got to play one. But we were technically the first U.S. death metal band to play in Europe.
Right.
so,
Yeah, that was
so
like
that was
I
a
was always wondering like what
yeah.
the fucking story behind that was
So that was a
because it's like why was the whole band in Europe and they played one song?
yeah, and
That was
Will
cool though.
Will Raymer came with us. Will from Mortician came with us
Shit.
because we were tight at the time. We helped him get started when Mortician got started. We were there when he recorded the first demo at the studio we recorded our demo at.
Right.
Will and I were like, we're still friends. I mean, we're still tight.
Right.
But at that time, I said to him, "Hey, listen, we're thinking about going to Europe." Because he was heavily involved in tape trading too. I
Right.
mean, he was writing Killjoy and all these bands as well. So he knew all these people too. So I was like, hey, you want to just come with us? And he was like, yeah. So the five of us went, booked
Wow.
our flights, went over there, and just fucking threw caution to the wind and said, let's fucking make it happen. And we did. And we spent 2 weeks over there going from UK to France to fucking Sweden. And the
Wow.
trip ended in Sweden, and we stayed with some of the Nihilist guys hosted us because they had just split and become Entombed. Will and I stayed with Johnny and his girlfriend Chelsea from Unleashed, and then I think Neil stayed with Fred from Dismember. I think that's how that went down. So all those guys hosted us, and they were all kids at the time, like 15, 16-year-old kids. So
Wow.
we were staying at their families' houses, So
Right.
it was pretty cool, man. And we got to experience the underground scene in Sweden back then firsthand, hanging out with all
Yeah.
those cats when they were like 16-year-old kids, drinking beers and like taking rides across town on the subway, like 30 of us from like all the Swedish bands at the time.
Wow. Oh
Yeah.
shit.
I
That's
think
crazy.
I think Ola from Grave came down from Gothenburg to meet us because he knew we were in town, and all these cats came out of the woods and hung out with us.
Oh,
Maddie
that's so
was
cool
in
because that
carbonized
just
at the time. Yeah,
again,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that shows how like the family unit, even in another fucking country, that
Totally,
far back too. Fuck,
dude.
dude.
Pre-internet, dude. So we were
I know.
we were we were coordinating this through letters. you know, so
Right.
so it was awesome, man. It was it was scary, but it was fun. You know what I'm saying? Because it was our
Okay.
first time out of the country. But we were all together, so for us it was like an adventure. So and maybe not scary, but a little daunting. And we
Maybe
were
in a
like,
weird way that paved certain paths too, I'm assuming, right? Like the paved life paths right there and not
yeah,
even realizing it.
maybe. I mean, that was once we got a taste of that and we saw, the world then becomes a very small place. It's not
Right.
as huge and daunting. It's not like, wow, we're on the other side of the planet now. It's like, no, we're with our brotherhood over here. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And we're all like-minded. We're all into the same music. I mean, as soon as we got there, it was like hanging out with our friends at home. No different.
Hmm.
So that just goes to show you the power and the I guess how this music kind of unifies people and kind of brings people
Fuck,
together.
dude.
It's awesome, dude. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome, man. So cool. Did
So
you didn't
anyway,
even have a demo out then?
yeah, we had at that time. I think we had just come out with our second demo because we brought that over. So
Was
we
this
are
it?
already.
Was this it at the time?
That was the advance, but by the time we got there, it already had the proper cover with the
Okay.
dude melting. That's the cover that Luke
Yeah, yeah.
LeMay from Gorguts drew for us. Yeah,
This one.
that one. Yeah, that's Luke LeMay did that for us.
I bought this demo at this show right here. It was
Oh,
like I
that
went
was
to
one.
yeah, I went to this Napalm Death show
Yep.
with a bunch of my friends, like Bill Venner and like some people that passed on too, and my friend Dennis from high school.
Yep.
And like we were really super into seeing like Revenant and Napalm, and I had just heard the Immolation 2-song demo at that time. I was like, holy
Nice.
fuck, dude, this is so bad. And
Nice.
then just so badass. And then I saw you guys were selling the new demo there, and I was like, what the fuck? And then I
Yeah.
bought that in the shirt. I brought it home. Next morning, I listened to it. I swear, I was like probably like 20, 30 seconds of the song. I was in my room alone. And I was like fucking headbanging already. I was like, this is the fucking sickest demo I ever heard, dude.
Yeah. But the great thing was like almost every demo that came out back then was like the sickest shit you ever heard. I remember
No,
when
this was a fucking one of the best, man. I
well,
mean,
like for example, like when Critical Madness came out, Autopsy
yeah,
second demo, like, dude, when that came out, we listened to the shit out of that. That was like the Die Kingdom Come demo, like nonstop. Nihilist, Only Shreds Remain, the first demo, then Only Shreds Remain, and then the Drown demo.
yeah,
Those demos, nonstop, dude. Like that's every time you heard something like that, you were like, what the fuck? I remember when we first heard Abhorrence, we brought them up earlier. Pre-Amorphous
right.
for anybody who doesn't know, Finnish band, but man, that was just insanely
Fucking A.
just sick. Just sick.
Paradise Lost demos.
Paradise Lost, yeah, the Frozen Illusion demo, and then the one before that, the first demo.
Right.
I had a burnt copy of that. Someone made a copy of that for me, but the Frozen Illusion demo, I had the actual demo with the
I know
cover.
Dr. Shrinker also put a little mark on you.
Absolutely, and the cool thing, and we've talked about this before, is like every demo, every version of Dr. Shrinker back then was slightly different. The
Right.
first one was completely different, and then Wedding the Grotesque was very different, and then the Eponym was completely different, but
Right.
all sick in their own way. But the 2-song demo was the one for me, man. That was just so twisted. And then after we had that long talk on the phone many years ago about Dr. Shrinker when you were putting out the record,
Right.
and they put out that newer record and it had a couple new songs on it. I fucking love that. And I actually got in touch with Rich, the singer, after that, and we were in touch for a while. He came out to see us in Milwaukee on the tour we did in 2019 with Blood Incantation.
Cool.
So it was cool to reconnect with him because I hadn't seen him since probably Milwaukee back in like 89. They did a show out there that we were at, and it was just
Right.
cool. So awesome dude. Really cool to see him. And I just love Dr. Shrinker, man.
Hail Rich.
Hell, Rich.
There's a lot of comments in here, man. Grease kills.
Grease. Right.
Hold on a second here. Let me see if there's into Ross was into Abomination of Desolation. He's mentioned that.
Yes, absolutely.
Hails Sean. Let's
What's up?
see here. What's up, Hails to Derek? Hails to Andre from Germany.
Germany, nice.
Try to stay here a few minutes to see you
Fuck
both.
yeah.
Cool,
Cool.
man.
Oh, I know him. Yeah, I know him.
Yeah,
Definitely. He's super
Immolation.
cool dude. We met at the last show of the tour we did in Europe with Full of Hell was with us, and he came out to see us, and we were hanging out after the show. Super cool dude. I met him after that, of course.
Yeah,
But
he's been on the podcast.
nice.
Torsten from Germany and
What's up?
Arui.
Yeah, I can't.
from
I can't
Germany.
wait to get back over there. Oh, Latham greetings. Who is that one?
That's Andre.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, man.
yeah.
He's a super supporter, bro. Appreciate it.
Fuck yeah, man.
One of the sickest demos ever. I don't know which demo we were talking about there, but hell yeah.
Autopsy.
What's up, John Verica? I was at
Hey,
the
what's up, John?
1988. Good
What's
times.
up,
I'm
man?
deaf.
Oh, John.
I'm still deaf and not blind from it.
That's great. John was pretty ubiquitous back then. He was at all the shows. He probably has a nice video, collection from back then.
Killer Morbid Angel stories, awesome. You guys got big with them in the early days. R.I.P. Richard Brunel.
Yeah, Richard was a good dude, man. He was really nice guy, super humble guy, and extremely talented guy, man. One of the good ones, man. I'm just sad I didn't have a chance to meet him before he passed. He was actually at a show we did in Tampa shortly before he passed, maybe a month before he passed.
Oh shit!
And I just didn't see him. The show was packed. It was like the last show of I think one of the Decibel tours that Morbid Angel was on, and us and Blood Incantation, and he was there, and I tried desperately to find him, and I did not see him all night, and it's just a shame.
With me and Chris Wrightford at MDF.
Yeah. Oh, we just saw Chris. Autopsy played the UK Fest. So
what's up, Evokin?
Always good. Oh, Evokin. Fuck yeah. Jersey's
Sergio from Brazil. Roy, send my regards. Ross, we wrote letters back in the 90s. Favorite band influence was Headhunter at DC. Last album, Immolation Rules. Return to Brazil.
Fuck yeah, man. I can't wait. I can't wait to return to all these places, man. Europe in a big way, South America. We're working on it for next year.
Yeah. I remember Lauren telling you guys were over there back then, and just you left to go home.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was a cool trip.
Long fucking time ago, man.
It was, man. It was.
Abhorrence demo is one of the heaviest demos ever.
Fuck yeah.
Frozen Illusion is fucking amazing.
Agreed. That's one of the heaviest demos to me. Frozen Illusion, when I heard that and the vocals, everything just sick.
Yeah.
Sick.
My wife and I, this is Paul from Deteriorate. My wife and I were listening to Dawn of Possession in the car today. It was great to see Ross again at MDF.
Yeah, we met up down in the Carolinas, and he was
Damo from Bloodstorm. Damon
Hey,
Bloodstorm.
what's
Ross,
up, man? Cool, man.
Also, cheers from Puerto Rico.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Met him and Bob when I attended Immolation show in San Paulo in 2012.
Nice.
Sick, bro. The only I had a question just before we go into too far into the future. What about this show though? So you played.
Oh, that was the show that you showed the flyer to earlier.
Right.
Death at Streets. Primeval was on that show too.
It's the first time Death ever played Streets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was Leprosy, around Leprosy.
Primeval too. Like you guys and Primeval were like a huge fucking thing for us, you know? Like between Revenant, Primeval, and Immolation.
Yeah.
Well, I think my friend Venner said it best. He said that you guys look like you had your own fucking crowd already back like in 89 and shit, like a fans.
Yeah, I mean,
that was rare though, because most bands came with like 5-10 friends, and but you guys look like you had a whole fucking crowd of motherfuckers with you.
We were lucky, man. Our first shows our first show wasn't a huge show, but it was in Jersey, with Revenant. Revenant booked that show, and Ripping Corpse and Deranged. That was our first show. But our first show at Streets, the venue you just showed the flyer for, that was like close to our hometown.
Local.
Yeah. And that place did well. So our first show there, was like packed, like
Right.
200-300
I think
kids
there's
there.
a video of that, and there's people fucking stage diving.
Yeah,
It's
you know. Now
completely
that being
incredible.
said, most of the crowd didn't know what to make out of us, you know. And
Right.
even on the Stepping on Angels, we put a couple live tracks from probably that show. And you hear someone like I announced the song, and someone's like, "You suck," you know. But it was just cool to leave it on there, just because like that was kind of what we got sometimes too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
people weren't sure
They
what
weren't
to
ready
do.
for those vocals.
Yeah. But you know, all of our friends were all about it, man. We had a pretty good following back then in those early
Yeah,
days
like
we were
you had
doing
a
it.
fucking following, like so, like ahead of everyone, and you had like a demo or two. It was cool, man.
Yeah, we were lucky, man, because we had a good, good group of friends, and I guess there were enough people who were, curious about what we were doing, and it also helped that we, we were in good with the guy who promoted the shows at the venue, one of the
Okay.
owners of the venue, Al, and he was a super nice guy, man. He treated us really well. We were just kids, so he could have just kind of like poo pooed us and been like, yeah, whatever. But he listened to us. He's like, hey, what do you guys? You guys got any good bands you want to throw my way?
Were
And
you like throwing them like the Sepulturas and the Deaths,
of
or
course, we
okay?
were his
That's what I
fucking link. We
think.
were his link to anything fucking heavy. So
Right.
Morbid Angel played there because why? Because we told him, hey, you have to book this show with this band, Morbid Angel. Trust
Nice.
me, it'll do good. And he fucking took our word for it. And that show was packed. We later said, hey, you got to book
Beautiful.
this band, Death. They got their second record out, and these guys are on fire. That show probably sold out, packed. And he was like, wow, these guys are fucking on fire.
They're
And
like,
then,
damn, they could open up all the shows.
right. So then
Napalm, bring them
yeah,
in. Sepultura.
Napalm, we called him from that trip we were on in Europe when we were in the UK. We were hanging out with Mick and Barney, and Mick was like, hey, we're going to play CB's on November 18th, let's say. And we were like, no shit, is that your only show? And he was like, yeah. And we were like, you want to play another show the night before on a Friday? And he's like, sure, if you could hook it up. So we called fucking that dude Al from the UK that night, got him on the horn and said, hey,
Wow.
dude, could you book this band on fucking whatever night it was on the fly? I don't even remember, but it was Friday night with CB's, and I think Saturday was Streets or something like that.
Right.
Whatever, it's not important now. But and he said, who are these guys? And we're like, dude, this band from the UK. It's going to be their first time in the US. You have
Right.
to book them, and let's make this happen. He says,
That's why I
okay,
went to it. I was like
yeah.
so excited.
So we were lucky because we had his ear, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
He actually listened to us. And after the first couple of shows went really well, he would sometimes come to us, hey, what about this band, Sepultura? Fucking book it. What about this band? Fucking book it, because we were fans and we just wanted to see these guys coming close to us, So
Right.
anyway, so that's kind of how that went down. So we were lucky. But
Also, something maybe people don't know, I'm just going to throw these up here real quick, is like you had this logo, obviously,
yeah,
that kind of morphed into this logo,
yeah.
and then obviously to this.
Yeah, so let me tell you the story on that real quick because I know that's where you're going, right?
Of course.
So the first one, the weird looking, we call it the fish logo because it looks like a weird fish. That one Neil drew. Our old drummer Neil drew that one.
Right.
The second one, we took Neil's kind of bootleg logo and we sent that to a guy named Renato Galina, who was played in this Disembowelment from Australia. Remember
Right.
Disembowelment? They were
Yep.
on Relapse. So
course.
we were in touch with Renato, and he sketched that second logo where the T came down with the hook on the bottom.
Okay.
So we liked that better. It was a little more refined. And then we took that logo and we gave it to
Right.
our good friend Mark Mastro from Rotrevor back in like 88 or 89 or whenever. And we said, hey, could you turn this into a professional logo for us? And he drew our classic old school logo.
Wow.
That was Mark Mastro. So that was the evolution. So
That's so cool. Your logo like went through like all these like evolutionary people too in a weird
sure.
way. Huh?
Yeah.
It's so fucking cool, man. Hell yeah, dude. Somebody's saying that show was a Saturday late afternoon. Joe Pupo.
Okay. Yeah. Joe would know, man. Yeah. I
Great
believe that.
show and a great crowd. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
It was. We were very
Russ,
fortunate.
I wanted to say this too, and this guy saying it. Dare I say the Immolation is the most humble metal band. Because in a way, you guys are pretty fucking humble, dude. Like compared to some of the metal heads, and I'm not saying all death metal heads are,
We're,
whatever, but
we're
you guys
fans.
are fucking humble, man.
We're fans first and foremost, as you know. You know what I'm saying? We go to shows all the time, and it's kind of hard to put yourself in that position. You know, sometimes we'll just kid around and have conversations about like, wow, it's weird. So because we never really got into it for anything other than, and I've said this a million times, but it's the truth. Uh, we enjoyed this music so much. For us, just hearing it recorded, even if it was on a shitty cassette
Right,
tape jam box recording in our studio, and having our friends over to the studio, that was fun for us. Playing our first live show, that was cool. But we
right,
never had aspirations to record records. We never looked that far ahead to even think that, hey, we could turn this into something. We never thought it would have the longevity it had, for sure.
right.
Not that I'm saying I didn't believe in this music. I still believe in
I'm
this
just
music.
saying that you guys hang out like as a band. Like sometimes,
Well,
us
why wouldn't we?
fans. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, there's fans like me, where I go to a show and like I don't see the band, I see them on stage, and that's it, and then they
Yeah,
leave.
I mean,
They don't
I
really like hang around or nothing. But
it
I
doesn't
don't
mean
get
that,
that vibe from Immolation ever.
and it doesn't mean these bands aren't humble. I mean, we
No,
know
I know that
yeah, we
too.
know
But
so many bands in our scene that are just like fucking like the most humblest, down to earthers,
right.
ever. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you
Even
guys are super fucking humble.
even
That's what
dude,
he's getting at here.
even someone like Dan Loker, for example, I mentioned him earlier, but
Right,
we've become close friends. For like the last 30 years. We've toured together multiple times. He lives close to me. We kind of watch each other's cats when we're away. You know what I'm saying?
right,
But Dan is like the real deal. Dan is like OG, thrash legend. You know what I'm saying? And we don't say that to him because he's just Dan to us. But I mean,
right.
that dude alone. But he's the most humble dude. He hangs
Yeah,
out in the crowd. He hangs out, walks around, has beers with fans, and chill. He'll sign anything. He'll take a photo with anybody.
right.
That these
That
are the
meant a
guys.
lot to me, actually, when I went to
Totally.
Lemoore
Him.
for the first few times when I was like, I was like
Yeah.
15 or 16,
But
and seeing him hanging around, just
totally.
fucking hanging around, you could just like walk up to him or whatever. That
These are
meant a lot to me, dude.
these are guys who are like unapproachable to us as 16-year-olds.
Yeah,
You'd
like
see
you had
them
the
at
record, you
you'd
know?
see them at clubs and you'd be like, oh shit, there's Dan from fucking Nuclear Assault, but you
Yeah,
wouldn't dare go up to him because you felt like an ass, you know what I'm saying? So, another guy like that I met back in '86 at the Exodus show was Gary Holt. That
right,
dude was just the most humble, kind dude ever, man. He came out, he just rolled out of Lemoore before the show started. They must have finished their sound check and he was coming out, and there was a huge line of kids. The doors weren't even open yet. And he came up to me and Will and my buddy Steve, and he
right.
just asked us straight up, hey, do you guys have tickets? And we said no. And P.S., we gave him $5. He put us on their guest list, and we got in on their guest list. And
Wow.
it was like crazy. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's
But,
cool.
and I met him, we played years later with Exodus when they first did the reunion thing, and we did a festival run with them in Europe. And I mentioned that story to him, and he was like, "Wow!" He's like, "I remember we used to do that to make extra money, beer money. They had like bogey names on this guest list, and they give out bogey names to the fans who didn't have tickets." So, but he remembered that. But Gary's always been super approachable, super
Yeah,
humble. But he's like a giant though to
he's
us.
a legend.
All these guys are.
I
So
gotta admit, I met him too, and he was super cool. So yeah,
yeah, so it's always nice when you meet those people who played such a huge role in your you're coming up in the ranks, you know what I'm saying,
right.
in your beginnings, and to meet them and the fact
Well,
that
Immolation does that for people. That's what like that. You guys do that for others, so that's cool, man. Like there's probably people that meet like you, like, oh shit, Immolation, But then,
yeah,
because you guys chill out and you're, act, you know what I mean, not so like rock starish, I want to
yeah,
call it, but
there's no
you
reason for
just
that shit,
yeah,
our scene isn't like that, and I'm happy to say, most of the bands are pretty down to earth and
I'm
pretty
sure,
humble and approachable. You know, whether they're hanging out in the actual crowd with the fans or not
right?
doesn't mean they're not humble. Sometimes,
I know.
sometimes they just want to chill backstage. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, I don't. I like when they're hanging out,
Of
dude.
course, of course.
It's cool, man. It's cool
But
with me.
yeah, but it's weird because like for me it's kind of weird, like if a fan, like, and this will happen often, like a fan will come up and they'll say, hey, you could see they're building up the courage to come up to me to say, hey, can you take a picture of me?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And you kind of put them at ease right away, but some of them are still you put your arm around them and they're shaking, because they're like fucking nervous. And I'm like, dude, relax,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
I'm just a
yeah,
normal guy.
yeah, dude, I'm just a fucking, metal dork,
I'm going to talk to you about the first time we met. So it was around this right here, and there was a club that we used to always go to, G Willikers.
Gee Willikers, epic
So
club.
even though we had, I believe, talked on the phone at this stage, or I bought your demos or whatever, this was the first time like I met you. You know what I mean? And met some of the other guys. So yeah,
Yeah, so it's
I
funny.
went to the show at Napalm Death and bought the demo, but I didn't really like talk to you because
Yeah,
I was a shaking fan. You know?
because we were rock stars hanging out backstage.
No, yous weren't though. Yous were hanging out just selling your shirts,
I
and you
know,
were normal. So
busting
yeah,
balls.
I know.
So it's funny you brought up that G Willikers flyer because I was just texting Annie Bowman last night, who was the woman who facilitated every show at G Willikers.
Right.
Annie Bowman was responsible for, I guess, fostering our scene in the
She
in the
was.
Northeast. I mean, G Willikers was a hub almost as important as Lemoore was to us in the earlier days, or CBGBs. G Willikers was that spot. Annie wasn't afraid to look outside the box and book demo bands from all around the country.
Right.
She would have every extreme underground death metal band at G Willikers at some point in time. You know what I'm saying? Every tour package, whether it was a Grind Crusher tour or the Death Carcass tour or
Right.
whoever, that was the place. And we would, quite
Yeah.
often spend our weekends down in the Philadelphia area, crashing at Annie's house, where she had the most
Right.
amazing parties after every show, where you would run into everybody from George Fisher, who wasn't who was in Corpse Grinder back then, you know what I'm saying, and people
And you
like
ran
that.
into a guy who later became your guitarist.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we met Alex at the first show we played down there with. He actually came up to see us prior to that at Streets, where we met
Okay.
him. But we played our first show with Gorephobia, in G Willikers. That was
Right.
our first time playing in G
That's so
Willikers.
cool, man.
Yeah, and Alex has come full circle with us now. Now he's our guitar player. Which
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
I remember going to those G Willikers shows, and it was like fucking like it was like the first time I might have heard Gorephobia, but then like not really knowing or hearing them, and then I'm leaving the show and I'm humming the tune Organ Donor in my head. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
didn't
man.
even know what it was. Like I didn't know what the song title was. Nothing, dude. It was just like, damn, that fucking song was badass, dude.
They were sick. That was a sick demo. Poltergeist Entrapment, another sick song.
Yeah.
Very catchy, but just extreme. I loved Chris's vocals at the time. Sick.
Right.
Very cool vocals. Our old,
yeah. Eventually,
Craig.
like you linked up with their drummer, and
Yes.
then he joined into Immolation.
Yeah, a bit incestuous back then, but
Right.
But yeah, he became our drummer for the first record, and he played on the second record, and then by the time the touring cycle started for
This was the lineup back then. This isn't the exact like time, like right when he joined, but I had taken this photo at in New York.
Yep, that was probably slightly after he initially joined. That
Right.
was probably around mid '90s, probably before Here and After
Yeah.
came out.
Cool.
I could tell by the jacket Bob's wearing, the old cable
But
jacket.
before that though was this though, and obviously this was an epic show for everybody.
Oh, Day of Death was classic, man. Classic.
Yeah.
Rip Brian Patterson, man.
Yeah. And then you probably met people there too that you never, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, that was that was our like mini Woodstock kind of. You know what I'm saying? We didn't know what to expect at that show, and that was a really fucking epic fucking day, man. It was very cool to see all those bands. I mean, those were all the bands that were just kind of like on fire at the time for our scene.
You guys.
Well, everybody was. That was a very important show for our scene. We didn't know it back then. For us, it was just like, cool, we get to see Autopsy and, Cannibal and Incan and Gorephobia and all these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was cool, man. You forget about that show because it was so long ago, but it's like I remember everybody was falling asleep at the end when Autopsy was about to go on.
Well, it was a long day, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And But
The
Autopsy crushed.
alcohol kicked in, you know?
Yeah, I think that was probably maybe I want to say it was our second time seeing Autopsy. I think we
Hmm.
saw him out in Milwaukee first.
Right.
Um,
At
I'm
the
not sure though. I could be
Michigan Death
wrong.
Fest by
Yeah.
Metal Mom.
No, it was at one of the Milwaukee fests.
Oh, Milwaukee
Yeah, it
Fest.
was one of the Milwaukee fests. I want to say it was like Autopsy and maybe Obituary, maybe. I don't
Gotcha.
know. I remember at that show, Obituary like blew up part of the stage.
Oh,
I
good.
mean, the show almost didn't continue. It was like before the days, I guess, of like fire code regulations. So yeah, they literally like blew up a piece of the drum riser. It was like
Wow.
fucking crazy. Yeah, but
How
anyway,
far between like this time of the day of death and then you kind of were like making a record or whatever? Like, did you guys have you had X amount of songs and
about
then
2 years, I think. I think Day of Death was what 89, 90 ish.
90?
90, so about a year. I think we recorded the first record a year later. So
Okay.
we had almost all the songs. The last songs that came for the first record, I think, were Everlasting Fire and Those Left Behind. So at that show, we would not have had those two songs written yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
but
guys
this
had like a rehearsal spot in Yonkers or
we had a monthly room that we shared with another band that wasn't a death metal band, just some local band, and
right.
we shared a monthly room, so we had access to it pretty much, all the time. Um,
You
by the
guys did something different back then, and they even promoted it as such. Is when you guys recorded, you went and recorded with Harris Johns,
Yeah, yeah.
which
Well,
was different because a lot of people were doing like the Morrisound thing at that time. Were
well,
you
think
guys
about. No,
like
I'm sorry.
against the Morrisound thing, or you wanted to do something different, or what gravitated you toward Harris John?
Well, here's the thing. Think about what we talked about earlier. We talked about the German thrash scene at the time and
Right.
how that was kind of embodying the heavier, darker style that we wanted to kind of, grow into. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Those were the bands. So it made sense for us to go to a studio that had those bands. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Harris Johns recorded Pleasure to Kill. Harris Johns recorded, I think, Killing Technology, Voivod,
right.
another band I left out. Voivod, classic. He recorded Sodom. You know what I'm saying? So those bands went to that studio and those albums all had a sick sound.
Right.
So we were given the choice between Harris, Scott Burns, and I think Colin Richardson. And at the
Okay.
time, Colin had, I think, Symphonies of Sickness had just come out, and that was like fucking amazing. That was like one of my favorite records at the time. And I was like, wow, it's sick.
Right.
Because I loved Carcass, the early Carcass back then. Um, and then it was Morrisound. It was Scott Burns. And we had nothing against I mean, he was actually Morrisound was like probably the first studio to kind of almost get it right as far as like, productions that sounded more professional.
Right.
But that being said, we all still preferred the dirtier sound,
Right.
and the imperfect sound, you know what I'm saying?
So your
That's kind of
label gave Harris Johns as a choice. You didn't bring it to them.
no, that was the three choices they gave us,
Okay.
man. So we were like, first of all, as like 19-year-old kids, or 20-year-old kids, we couldn't believe that we were given these opportunities. So we were like, wow, this is fucking killer.
Mm,
So it was a no-brainer for us. We were just immediately like, oh, we're definitely going to fucking Germany without a
yeah.
doubt. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we did. We went to Germany
Cool.
and we got to spend like 3 or 4 weeks at Music Lab, the infamous Music Lab studios,
Right.
with Harris Johns recording a record. And at that time, we got to experience Berlin. The Berlin Wall was still up. I mean, the curtain
Wow.
had come down, but the wall was still up in most of the city. So we were there at a very cool time in history. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? The fucking that the Scorpion song "Winds of Change," that
Right.
was like ubiquitous on all the music channels and the radio. So that was like the soundtrack to that moment in time for us. So for us to be there at a legendary studio with a guy
Yeah.
like Harris, who was awesome. Harris was like the perfect producer for guys like us, young guys who had never been in a pro situation like that, who really
Okay.
didn't know what the fuck we were doing, had no concept of like what recording an album was about. You know what I'm saying? So, needless to say, Harris was very patient with us. Harris was super calm, super chill, and so accommodating, man. I love the guy. He was so
Nice.
awesome. And we're still in touch with him today. He's
Wow.
fucking still, we still keep in touch with him, man. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so that
obviously,
was
you guys made a phenomenal album there with Dawn Obsession. You know,
well, thanks to him. I mean, it was him. It was he who kind of, pushed us. We recorded a lot of those parts multiple times, so we got it tight. This was before digital shit, so you had to go in there and play that shit until it was fucking perfect. You know
right?
what I'm saying? So, he was there rooting us on, and he was, really there supporting us any way he could. And I think the outcome was like as best as it was going to get at that time. So
Fucking
I will take
killer,
it.
dude. Everyone loves it.
Cool.
As important as Morrisound was to DM Tampa, it made it sound pro. It also made everything sound the same.
And that was I agree to it in a degree. There, a lot of the records coming out of Morrisound had a similar style production wise. The bands didn't sound the same, so
No,
you can't really judge the band on the
like the
production.
drums sound the same, kind of. That's what it was.
Yeah, yeah, but you got to remember, no, you can't knock that because that was at a time where
We were looking for that bigger sound,
right. It
but
was very
without compromising. Like, you know what I mean?
exactly. It was
But
difficult.
you chose a different path because you went with the dirtier ass studio, which
Yeah,
is kind of cool.
and Harris had the experience, and he had worked with a lot of bands that were, very extreme. Had a
Right.
lot of fucking low end and crazy shit going on in the drums. So, it worked. I mean, for us, it was perfect. It kind of, excuse me, it kind of captured that vibe that we
Big
wanted.
learning experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, so anyway,
Would
but
this be what came afterwards? You guys got signed and then you did a tour with Goraphobia in the
yes,
US?
yeah. So we booked that tour. I booked that tour pretty much, with the help of some friends, and we had an old routing with promoters that we got from a friend of I think a Morbid Angel tour that
Right.
somehow we got a hands of. So we had contacts to promoters, which was instrumental
Straight
in.
up underground tour, no booking. You were the booking agent in a
Yeah.
weird way.
It took me months to book that tour because no internet, so you're calling these
Right.
people, trying to get them on the phone, leaving messages, hoping for a call back. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So I was kind of booking us with Goraphobia at
First US tour?
first U.S. tour, yeah,
Right.
first full U.S. tour, and it
Cool.
it was great. I mean, we played Mexico City like a few days before that, flew back, drove down to Florida in our van and trailer, and started our tour in like early July, and it went to like third week in August. So it was like a long
Nice.
tour, yeah, and it was
Cool.
pretty successful as far as underground tours with like really no kind of not that much
Right.
support or push. So
Yeah. Oh, you guys you were the road warriors, you know? You were
yeah,
out there kind of just hitting the road hard, you know? Was this
trying.
part of that tour or was this like afterwards? It's
Where
kind of a
is
little afterwards, right?
where is that?
This is
That,
the
that never
Waters
happened.
Club.
That never happened.
This never happened? All
Never
right.
happened. Yeah, there were a few shows that.
Enrique was talking about a show the other day, and I had Enrique from Sadistic Intent on here the other day, and he was just
Yeah,
mentioning some shows at that club.
yeah, there were a couple of shows around that time
Well,
that
so
we.
actually, there was something else that happened. This was European, though.
Yeah, yeah, that was our first European tour, which I think preceded the U.S. tour. So that was our
Right.
first official tour out of the gate for
So you
Dawn
toured with
Obsession.
Massacre and Loud Blast and Morgoth.
So the tour was originally Massacre, Morgoth, and it was supposed to be Devastation from Texas.
Okay.
Last minute, Devastation pulled off the tour, and we got offered that spot. So that was the tour: Massacre, Morgoth, and us.
Hmm.
Loud Blast joined us just for like 2, maybe or 3 shows in France.
Okay.
Okay, so but the tour, that was the tour: Massacre, Morgoth, and us. It was for Morgoth's Cursed record, and it was for
So bugged out. You
Morgoth.
guys played a European tour before you toured the US, but I mean, I
Yeah.
guess those were different times. Europe is still banging as hell.
Europe was fucking, dude. Every show on that tour was pretty much sold out. That was like the biggest tour to go through Europe for this genre of music at the time.
Right.
Massacre had just put out the From Beyond album, so it was Terry Butler, Bill Andrews, Cam Lee, and they had, I think, Steve Swanson on guitar. So that was their lineup, the old Morgoth lineup, and it was us, with Craig on drums, and that was our first European tour. It was like 39 shows. It was booked through a company in
Wow.
Germany. We were on a bus with all the bands, our first bus tour. So we started out of the gate like, living the dream, you know what I'm saying, on a bus with a crew. And shortly after we're in the States, for like 2 months in a van, in a
Yeah,
trailer,
yeah.
doing our own thing. So it was a big, big difference between worlds, you know what I'm saying? So
Well,
we got,
Europe, playing shows in Europe is a big difference between US, obviously.
yeah, I mean, those shows were, like I said, I'd say 90% of those shows were sold out. It was a big deal tour. We had no idea what we were jumping into. We were like,
Okay.
Massacre, that's awesome. Morgoth, Killer, this will be awesome. And we got over there and we were like, what the fuck? I mean, it was insane, dude. Insanity. I've never experienced that, since then, probably. I mean, it was that good, probably because it was the first.
Yeah, yeah. And I see you had a date in Canada too, 92,
Huh.
Antagonist,
92.
Road
Yeah,
Racer Records.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that probably happened. I'm sure because we did a bunch of stuff. I don't recall the bands, but yeah, we were up there for
You
sure.
played all over the place. I
Yeah.
mean, it was cool that I mean, I have this too from Jersey. This is a show I
Oh
went to.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Where was that from? Studio One.
Studio
Yeah.
One, yeah, with Snag,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Fungus, which is pre-ceremonium.
Yep.
Yeah, cool, man. So yeah, after the RC and all this, you guys went to Metal Blade, right? Basically, you made
Yes.
this demo first. Is this what got
Yes.
you signed to Metal Blade?
Yeah, that was in between Roadrunner and Metal Blade. We recorded that to promote the three new songs we had, which later appeared on Here and After. So,
Uh huh.
so yes, that was to shop to labels, and we landed on Metal Blade eventually. But you remember there was like 5 years in between because
Right.
we left Roadrunner, on good terms. They let us out of our contract because we weren't happy because we were just green at the time.
Right.
Our expectations at the time, and I've said this before, were way above what they should have been, what we had any business having, really. So we thought, we were like, oh, we're on a label. Wow, things are gonna be on
Where's
fire.
our bus?
Yeah, yeah. And then we realized, we were like, boop, 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 doo, like, oh, cool. It's not quite like that. So anyway,
Yeah.
we were humbled really quick, and we learned that, you have to almost work harder, you know, once you have a record out to kind of keep your band relevant and to keep
Right.
your band out there and to kind of just do the legwork.
Do you think
You
that
know,
laid the foundation for the whole future of Immolation? Because I noticed you guys, you work harder and harder and harder. Like you're one of the hardest working death metal bands, I think. You know.
we worked hard back then, but we weren't as focused. Can you understand what I mean by that? We weren't as focused. Once we got the record out and we kind of were disappointed during that time and signed with Metal Blade, we got more focused. I mean, we got focused before then. We were like, we have to get it. We just have to just fucking
Right.
really, if we're gonna make this happen, we can't rely on labels or anybody else. We have to do it ourselves. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because it
Okay.
wasn't that kind of world at the time.
So yeah, it
So
was like a learning experience. Even being on a label, you still
sure.
had to learn that you guys had to do it yourself. So obviously in '95 you put this out though,
Yes,
Here
yes.
and After,
Yep, yep, yep.
which obviously was met with a pretty decent fucking response.
Yeah, I mean, it was, especially after it came after 5 years of doing nothing, that was a make or break for most bands. If you didn't do anything for 5 years and you were a first album band, chances are, if you put out a record 5 years later, you may not, you may
If your
disappear
style changed,
into the
yes.
dustbin of history, if you know what I mean. But we were
Well,
fortunate
you
that,
guys didn't change your style too much either, though.
no,
Like
we didn't.
you
No.
progressed as musicians, but you didn't
Yeah.
change your fucking style to like clean vocals and
No, no. But that being said, we were still finding our style, if you know what I
okay,
mean. Dawn of Possession was what it was, but that album, and I say this all the time, had a lot of our influences in it,
right.
the Venom, the Creator, the Slayer, the Destructions, all that earlier stuff that kind of we came up with, that all kind of, you know,
Where do you
was
guys feel like you found yourself? Failure for Gods, Close to the World.
probably around Close to a World Below. We started to lock in more, I think,
Okay,
Here and after 5 years, came out kind of, it was a heavy, it was a very dense album.
right.
It was a good album for what it was. I think the production hurt that record, But for what it was good. But we still hadn't found ourselves. Failures for Gods, the third record, was much more progressive than even Here and After was in a weird way. Um, and I think once we hit Close to War Below, we were learning how to write songs that made more sense, that had more dynamics, that hit you harder,
Right.
that didn't have parts that kind of had no reason being in the song, or parts that had reason to be in the song, but we only kind of went with like four measures and left. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But we didn't capitalize on the strengths in those songs. So we learned how to become better writers and better, musicians, of course. I mean, we're
Cool.
still becoming better players with each year, that never ends. That process never ends. So
Right. Here and After may be their best album, in my opinion.
cool. Thanks. Thank
Somebody
you.
was
I'm glad
saying
you
Here and
felt it.
After. My friend John was saying it's cool hearing a dark atmosphere. Wayne and Jim produce Here and After. You guys matured it too. Amazing
Yeah.
record.
Well, to be clear, Wayne Durrell produced that record. Jim was in the studio with us, kind of advising us, but it was Wayne Durrell. Jim had no part in that as far as like the actual sound of the record. Jim
Gotcha.
was more there as kind of an advisor. Like we'd ask him, "What do you think about mic placement? What mics would you recommend for this guitar sound? What do you think of this?" He was kind of like our go-to guy. He was
Gotcha.
the guy who recorded that 3-song promo demo that you just showed.
Right.
And Jim Forbes was the brother of Chris Forbes, who
Right.
did the longest running fanzine probably in history, Metalcore. And
Metalcore.
and Chris kind of helped like manage us, at the time,
Right.
helping us out tremendously. So we got the connection, met his brother through him. He did the demo and we had him in the studio. But to be clear, Wayne Durrell was the guy who, produced, mixed, and mastered that record.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then obviously you guys did the Close to the World Below.
Yeah, we did after the third record was
I guess there were some shows in between there, etc.
yeah, well, yeah, there was touring. I mean, Here and After did so well. We could probably thank Cannibal Corpse for that because Cannibal
Right.
graciously took us out on 4
Yeah,
tours
there
for
was
that album cycle.
different tours I noticed too. Yeah, like I don't know if this is one. You
Well,
had
that
a
was during that. Yes, that was during that time.
Cannibal
That
Corpse.
was '96. Those were the No Mercy festivals in Europe,
Yeah,
and
and then
yes,
you had another one here where you did Cannibal Corpse, Brutal Truth,
same.
Immolation,
That was the first
Long
round.
Island.
That was the first round in '96, and
And
then we redid that.
'97 there was a more
Right,
again, Brutal Truth,
right.
Oppressor,
Yeah. See, you could
etc.
tell which was the later one. Oppressor was on the '97 round.
Right.
Brutal Truth and us were on the first round in '96. Brutal Truth was on all the rounds with us except for the Euro
All
run.
these covers you guys got on the records were like the fucking best, best death metal covers, dude.
That was Andreas Marshall. That was all his vision. I mean, we
Yeah.
sketched those out for him and sent us some shitty sketches, but man, that was all Andreas Marshall, man. Huge fucking talent, man.
Fuck,
Awesome
dude.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Even the Here and After. I mean, the cover is fucking phenomenal,
Oh,
dude.
just amazing. We were like, we were blown away when we saw all those covers for the first time. We were like,
Yeah,
holy
it's cool
shit,
because it sets the tone of the band and the music where you have a sick
totally.
cover to go with it. Because sometimes the
Absolutely.
first thing you see is the cover, right?
Yes, yes. Absolutely, man. Andreas, we met him when we were doing that first record in Germany, in
Okay.
Berlin. He was a friend of Harris Johns, and Harris
Oh,
kind of brought him over to the studio one night. He said, "Hey, I got a good friend of mine. He's an artist. Maybe you could use him." And we already had a guy lined up, and we said, "Yeah, but we'll meet him anyway." And he had done the necro. You remember the necro? Oh, I can't remember. It was
Necrodeath?
necromantic. Necromantic.
Necromantia?
No, necromantic was a movie.
Oh, Necromantic, the German
Yeah.
movie?
Yes, he did that artwork for that.
Oh yeah, the cover
Yeah.
for the Necromantic poster.
Yes, he did that.
Right.
So when I saw his portfolio, one of the first things I saw was that, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And he had done a lot of movie posters. He did like Dress to Kill. Remember that with Angie Dickinson when we were kids? He did like a lot of like movie posters, like in the horror genre, and we were like, "Wow, that's sick."
Wow.
So we were like, "Wow, I wish we could use this guy." So we came home from that trip. We saw the artwork, which later was used on the Stepping on Angels CD.
Right.
but that was the artwork we had, and we were like, I don't know, we don't really want to use this. It's not quite what we're going for. So we reached out to Andreas via
Okay.
fax, and he faxed us a sketch after we sent him all our ideas, and that's all we had to go on was just really basic line sketch of the
Right.
album cover.
That's the thing that's inside one of the
Yes,
demo releases, right?
exactly. So when we actually saw the gel of the original, like his finished piece, we were fucking blown away. We went down to the Roadrunner offices for that, and they said, "Hey, come on down." It was pre-internet, so you couldn't like share the file.
Right.
We had to drive down to Manhattan, go to the office, go upstairs for the big reveal. We're holding it up to the window to look through the light. The light coming through. We're like, wow, that's
Right.
amazing. And that was the first time we saw our album cover, and we were blown away. Even though it was like that big, we were blown away. So
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. You know what's cool too? That over 30 years, like with the angels and devil and everything, like that's
yeah,
stuck with you guys and like
well,
you
yeah.
merchandising and
Well, it's a big part of who we are lyrically. That
right,
constant struggle between good and evil.
right.
Whether
That's what I'm saying.
within or without. On an exterior. Around us, in the world. So that's on a theme, whether it's religion or just world events or whatever. But it's always that kind of struggle. And I think
Right.
that album captured the sense of that and kind of set that tone.
Do you feel like it
I
changed your lyrical style or writing over
definitely
the years or made it more personal or
definitely it definitely became, I mean, it was personal back then,
right,
in a big way, but once we've kind of exhausted our point of view on organized religion, 9/11 happened, and I said this in the decibel piece that just came out with the unholy cult. That was the turning point for us lyrically, where we kind of shifted from the super heavy religious themes, in a world that we were more familiar with, to just kind of looking at what was going on in the world at that time, right after 9/11, and
okay.
like during that time and right after 9/11,
Yeah, because you lived right by there, so
going down to the site.
right,
That happened on a Tuesday, going down there on a Thursday, Bob and I, to donate stuff for the
right,
rescue workers and to the rescue dogs and to anybody who needed, and seeing that firsthand. And I say that we talked about this in that interview. you know that changed us, I think, in a profound way. It's
right.
hard to explain, but you see things a lot differently from that point forward, and that changed the lyrical, I think, direction of the band.
Gotcha.
And I think it went in a darker direction in a lot of ways, for sure, because it talked about real dark things that were happening all around us at that time, and still are to this day.
Right,
And the lyrics have become personal in a lot of ways. We talk about a lot of personal stuff, a lot of personal feelings. We do it in a way where it's not that obvious, but yeah,
right,
especially on the new record, a lot of songs, a couple of songs on that are super personal. Um, we just came through a very dark time the last couple of years. So, a
right,
lot of that made its way onto the record. So the point is, you're inspired by the zeitgeist of the moment. You know what I'm saying? What's
right.
happening around you in the world, in your life personally and what have you. So it's hard to pinpoint it. It just is. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get it. I mean, it shows too, because even with some of your song, like some of the titles of the albums and the song titles, like you could see that there was like some shifts, and you know what I mean.
Sure,
It
sure,
wasn't just
sure.
about like unholy or whatever. It was more like a
Yeah.
little bit more serious. Also, the playing was getting a lot more serious, a lot
Yeah.
heavier and bigger.
Yeah, I mean, Bob really kind of fucking honed his style, and like I've always been, not only are we like brothers, but I've always been a fan of his playing, of his writing.
Right,
Just forget the fact that I'm in the band with him, and I've known him forever, and we're like brothers. But if I could step beyond that, like he's a fucking amazing guitar player. I mean, super talented, and the shit he writes, I'm usually the QC guy, so he'll come up with a bunch of stuff, and he's never quite sure. He's always kind of on the fence. A lot of things he's fucking, yeah, spot on with, but a lot of times he'll run stuff by me. I'm like, wow, that's fucking amazing. He's like, yeah, you think so? I'm like, yeah, dude, fuck yeah. So I think we have the way we work, it's a really good relationship, because I try to kind of foster his creativity, being, trying to, you know, throw the positivity at him when it's definitely needed. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
if it's something that I think he could do better with, he knows. I don't need to tell him this. He's a fucking sharp dude. He knows it. But
Right.
sometimes it's nice to get that, affirmation from your friends or
Right.
someone
Right.
in the inner circle. You know what I'm
You're
saying?
like, he's like, check out this riff, and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
fuck.
same thing with me. When I'm writing some lines or I have some ideas, and I'll say, and I'm not sure of it. I'm almost like afraid to show him, and I'll show him like, oh, that's sick. Oh, that's cool. Or like, I'm doing my track and my vocals in the studio, which is really the first time we're all hearing it. And I'll do a line. And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think of that? And he's like, ah, oh, fucking nailed it, kid. That sounds sick. And I'm like, how's it sound? He's like, oh, it's fucking killer. So we kind of feed off of each other because I think, I'm super insecure. So I need that kind of positive reinforcement at times to kind of get me through those processes. And I think he does too, man. I think we all do. You know what I'm saying? We're never quite sure of ourselves. We're always
Yeah.
doubting Thomases,
Yeah. I
So
can
it
see
helps.
that. I can
So
see
it
that.
helps.
I'm like that with my own business, so I get that.
Yeah, man. It's just, I guess it's our nature. But anyway,
I
so
mean, I noticed, yeah. I mean, even though you guys were banging out albums, like you have a series of like different tours, like or shows. Like you played with Deicide,
yeah,
and then was this Rotting Christ was the headliner?
yeah, that was a U.S. tour. Around
Belfagor
2008. Yeah, that was a great tour, man. We love the Riding Christ
and
guys.
Maryland Death Fest.
Of
I guess
course,
this was
man.
Maryland Death Fest 7. Was this
Of
the first
course.
time you guys played there?
I think we played two or three. We
Okay,
played one of the earlier ones
I couldn't
first.
remember.
The one that was in White Marsh. We played that right before the DSI tour, I believe.
Okay,
Before that DSI tour.
sorry, I
And
forgot this one too. Crisian and Grave
oh yeah, that was
in Europe, though.
that was the first tour in Europe for Shadows in the Light. With our friend, great good brothers and friends in Crisian and Grave. I mean, all those guys. We love all those guys. Good
Oh
friends,
yeah, bro.
killer musicians, and killer people.
I saw, yeah, a couple things where you guys played. It seems like you sometimes play with some of the same bands, like a Crisian or
Well, yeah, I mean,
Cannibal Corpse.
it's always cool to play with bands. Not only are you a fan of, but you like as people. I'm going to Crisian's going to be up in Rochester, and I think next week. So I'm going to go see. I haven't seen them in a while, probably since right before the pandemic at a festival. So it'll be cool to see those guys and connect with them. They're out with, I think, Revocation. So that'll be a killer tour. I
Right.
can't wait to see both those bands. So that'll be cool. And then we'll have, I think, Full of Hell. And Blood Incantation Mortuous tour will be in Buffalo at the end of October. So I'll definitely be at that one because we love all those fucking guys. Yeah, dude, that's the tour package right there, man. That's a fucking tour package. Fucking awesome.
Cool, man. Yeah, they're cool. I was trying to tap in with them last weekend. Be like, come on, man, come on, fucking Death Metal Podcast. Just have your friend hold up the phone
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean,
at the Mortuous show.
yeah, man. Fuck yeah.
Because I had just gotten the tape or whatever, and I was listening to it, and I was like, yeah, fucking, I'll text the guy from the band. See if
Yeah, I
he'll
mean,
fucking.
yeah. I
Or
just
Paul. I was texting Paul. I was like, hey, you want to have one of your friends hold the phone up?
Yeah, the new Mortuous album's really good. I just finally got to listen to that during the week. Actually, I spun it a couple of times. Fucking good album.
Yeah, man.
Chad, the drummer, used to play. Well, he still plays in Necrot, but that's how we met him on the
Okay.
Necrot tour. Awesome dude, man. Awesome dude.
Yeah, the fucking album's sick.
Yeah.
And you're tapped in, man. You know your shit. I'm watching BI and Mortuous tomorrow.
Fuck yeah. It's gonna be
All right.
killer. Send my
I'll get
regards.
Yeah, good album.
Fuck yeah.
Fucking A, dude. I bet you're a fan of Revenge. Okay, he's talking to someone in the chat. Seen Immo every time at MDF. Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, MDF is always an event for us, man. We love Evan and Ryan and their whole crew, man. And it's just, it's become like its own thing now. It has a life of its own. And I'm really happy that they're going to bring it back in 24 because I think the USC needs a fest like that. That has become
Oh,
our,
yeah. When I
it's
was there this year, I was like, holy shit, dude. Like,
it's an
this is important.
it's an important fest for all of us, man. I mean, I go just to hang out most years. I just love going. It's a fun weekend. You get to see so many,
Right.
cool people. It's just awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. It was just cool because of it was cool because in the US there's not like these bigger like Vakken or Death Fest things, like
No,
not as much, you know what I
no.
mean?
Psycho Vegas was really cool, and Albert's doing the Decibel Metal and Beer Fest,
Right.
which is killer. Smaller scale, but man, that's a great idea. And
Yes.
we're gonna play the Denver edition on this upcoming tour with Cannibal, and I'm looking forward
Cool.
to that because we played the Philly one twice, and it's such a great fucking idea, man.
Do they make a new beer every time you guys play? Because it's the beer and metal
Well, they
festival.
have all the different breweries, and they do collaborations with all the bands. So most of the bands that play there have some kind of collab with.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys had a mead.
We had a meet, and we're gonna have that again for this. The same company, Birmingham, is bringing back the Angels Fall mead, which came out great, man. And I was like, when we first tried it, we were like, holy shit, these guys fucking nailed it. So fucking,
Send 10 more cases.
props to them, man. And that was like really honestly my first time even sampling mead. Actually, no, Alex sent us samples of their product before we got involved with them to check it out. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So they did a killer job, and we're going to actually bring that back for the Denver edition. We're going to do it proper this time. So.
Here we go. Here's a good one. Back in 2003, 8-ish, Ross and Bob went to Shachi's restaurant with me and Paul
I,
and Ruben.
I remember that. I
Total
totally remember that. Yeah, it was right near the club. Slotsky's was like a killer like sandwich place we went to. Yeah, and it was awesome. And we know, Paul Ramirez has been a close friend of ours since our first tour in '92. And he came out to the show. We stayed at his house. Us and Goraphobia stayed at his mom's house. And he's been a good friend to us up to this point.
Yeah.
On the last tour,
I lived at his house at one point.
Paul's awesome, man. Awesome dude, man.
Bob did some of the most distinctive and tortured sounding leads in death metal on the first 4 albums. On the first 4 especially. Can't pick a favorite between the first 4 albums. Gotta have all the first 4.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, to me, Bob is, a fucking amazing guitar player.
And the new fuck, man. I've been listening to some. I picked up some of these tapes, like these tape box sets, and the new one on tape.
Oh, sick! Cassettes are back, man.
That's bro.
Fucking cassettes.
Roy Fox fucks with cassettes, dude.
Yeah.
Bob, I think it was a Decibel Mag thing.
Oh, that was killer. Yeah.
Set.
Yep. I got
a Corpse Bristle had done one too,
Yep. Oh, they did the I think the one in the longer box.
The other, yeah. And you guys did a long box CD.
Oh, that came out too. That was great to see that back.
I know.
Well, everything cool. Old is new, right?
I get, yeah.
Including us.
It is, I mean, as time went on, you guys obviously were with Listenable. You did Harnessing Ruins, Shadows in the Light with them.
Yep.
And then eventually you were on Nuclear Blast.
Yeah. So
that a big game changer for you guys? Because Nuclear Blast, obviously. Whew.
Huge. Yeah. I mean, it seems like once we signed with Nuclear Blast, things really started to happen for us.
Right.
We finally had a label that was able to, do what it needed to do for us. It knew how to, push a band like us.
Right.
And they were in our corner every step of the way, So, yeah, I mean.
Strong running promotional machine. You're on the same label as Slayer, no?
Yeah. So we just re-signed with them. So Acts of God was our first of 3 albums of the new contract. We did the 3 with them: Majesty, Kingdom, and Atonement. And now we just re-signed with them just because. And they're the first label that we ever re-signed a deal with, just because they've treated us so well. We love everybody at the label. They're really good people, and they believe in the band. And not only are they fans, but they believe in us, which is something something we've lacked. I don't think we've had that 100% on any of the labels we've been on at any one point in time. So it's nice to finally.
And you want that as a band, because you don't want to be forgotten after that 3-month cycle or whatever in the advertising or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like.
You need that. We need that. Believe me, we need that. So it was a good pairing, and I'm just happy that we've been able to continue with them. So
yeah, just stay 5 feet away from Bob or get nailed by his guitar neck.
Yeah, he's always fucking stabbing the
chopping,
fucking with his guitar neck. Yeah, it's fucking great.
Is that some kind fuck, dude?
Yeah, well,
so he's trying to resonate the sound into the fucking crowd. Like, that's what it feels like.
He's got some fucking moves, man, and I don't always see him. I don't see them until like we'll rewatch some stuff that gets posted online, and I'm like,
Right. Yeah,
and
because
or
you're doing your thing and you're
yeah,
singing and playing. You got Alex,
yeah.
your
I
drummer's doing his thing. Maybe he sees Bob a little, you know?
I'm rarely just aware of those guys, unless I have to like make contact with them. But I'm not. I'm in the zone, so I'm not acknowledging what they're doing,
Right.
And then I'll see Bob, on a YouTube video after the fact, and we'll bust each other's balls, and we're like, "Damn, kid's got fucking moves." Yeah.
I mean, there's
So,
something to be said, just in general, like of the stage presence of Immolation, even after all these fucking years, dude. Like
well,
not only you guys touring multiple times a year, you guys go out there and you give 125%, dude.
Well, again, that's not something that happened right away. That took many years. For me, I can speak for myself. It took me many years and many album cycles to get comfortable on that stage, like
Mm.
to go out there.
I thought you
And
were a good talker through most of it, though. You don't think so?
I'm
Even
not
way back, like in the
I'm not.
'90s.
I never felt comfortable being that guy, being the front
Okay,
man. I was kind of put in that situation. Tom was originally going to be the guitar player singer, and then like literally 2 weeks before that very first show, he said, "Hey, you're going to have to sing now because I need to really just concentrate on my playing."
okay,
And I was like, "Well, I kind of need to concentrate on my playing because I can't play that great yet either." So it was one of those things. So I was kind of put in that situation. So if nothing else, it forced me to practice that much more and kind of, really put in the time. So, but that being said, it took me many years, and I think it took us as a band many album cycles before we could go up there and not even think about it. Go up there and be confident and feel comfortable enough to just fucking go for it and not
mm,
worry. You know what I'm saying?
that's
I mean,
killer.
we went for it back in the day, but it was very uncomfortable because you were just always trying to make sure you didn't fuck up, and
Mm,
now it's a little different. You know what I'm saying? I don't ever think about that. You know what I'm saying? I just go
okay,
on there, but I put in the time. Like I've been practicing now for like 2.5, 3 weeks now for this tour. That's a month and a week away. You
right,
know what I'm saying? So I'll practice every day, just going through the songs. Not that I need to, but I want to have it so locked in that I don't have to think about it on stage. So I can
gotcha.
go up there and enjoy the moment and not have to be worried about, oh, am I forget this part? Oh, what's coming up next? I don't ever want that to happen. And luckily,
Right.
knock on wood, that hasn't happened too many times.
Yeah, and do you find it hard over the years? Because obviously, I got to ask this question. That you have so many songs, it's hard to spread.
Sure, that's the hardest. Good question, because that's probably my least favorite and the hardest part about choosing a set list now for a
Right,
tour. Like, for example, the Cannibal tour now will have 45 minutes. So, it's hard to look back through over 113 songs and
right,
pick 45 minutes of material that's reflective of our career. So it's not going to happen. So we threw that out the window. We're obviously concentrating harder on the newer songs off the new record because a bunch of those we haven't played live yet. So we're throwing those in the mix.
gotcha.
And we're throwing a couple of different older songs, that we haven't played in the last like couple cycles. So nothing crazy, but just stuff that's just different than what we've done in the last cycle or two. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So just to give the kids a little variety. I don't
Yeah,
want
yeah, I think
to
that's awesome.
shit. So we always try to change it up, but it's always difficult
It
because you
must be
always
hard, yeah, to boil it down to like maybe 10 songs or something when you have
it's
100.
it's super hard, and it's always disappointing when you have to
When
lose
someone
someone really.
yells something, that's one
Yeah,
song.
that or when you lose the song you really want to keep in there. There's always
Mm,
songs I'm like, oh, we have to play this one, and then eventually it gets voted off, and I'm just like,
uh,
you know what I'm saying? But sometimes for the best, though. Sometimes for the
hey,
best.
it is what it is.
So,
It's
you
cool
know,
that you guys can go and choose, obviously.
first world problems, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And then as far as, with acts of God and everything, like every I mean everything, you guys, the release, the way it rolled out was like beautiful, dude. You know what I mean?
well,
There's just
again,
something special about it. I don't know.
we pushed for that and we worked hard with the label to coordinate that.
Right,
We made a lot of that happen. Bob was aggressive in getting those 3 videos done
right,
to line up with the release. You know, we had the foresight to kind of lock in a release date and start booking that first tour to coincide with that release.
Okay.
We have never really put in that time prior to any releases. Usually our albums coming out like midway to the first through the first tour or
Right.
after the first
Okay.
tour,
So
which is
that's
a
why I'm seeing the difference here.
yeah. So this time, and I think because we had so much fucking time because of the pandemic, we were able to kind of get our ducks in a row. So
Mm,
it was a good lesson for us and how to do things properly for the future.
gotcha.
So that's my point. 30 years in, we're still learning how to do shit
Of
correctly.
course.
So,
That's normal. And the cover, phenomenal, man.
yeah, yeah.
This is just
Illaran knocked this fucker out of the park, and I hope he
hell
I
yeah.
hope he hears this because he deserves every bit of fucking all the accolades for that one. Um, he was on our radar for years. Uh, he reached out to us a while back, a couple of years back, but we weren't ready to make the switch yet because we were using Par Olufsen at the time.
Okay.
Um, for this album cycle, because this was a darker album, we're coming off of a pandemic, so our mindset was completely different. We were in a much darker place, so we wanted the album lyrically is a very dark album, and we wanted the cover to reflect all of that. And you know, we were in the studio trying to think of concepts and artists, and I kept coming back to him, and I said to Bob, I said, I think this should be our guy, and he's like, yeah, he does some really killer
Nice.
stuff. And we wanted to kind of revisit the vibe of the earlier records, but not, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
that classic, good versus evil type of struggle, but in a different, newer, reimagined way. This album's completely different looking and sounding, but it still harkens back to those earlier records. And
It's different looking and sounding, but like with the atonement, you have something that was like really a lot of different energies, like really strong fucking energies, and then you just continued them on. You know what I mean?
yeah, so yeah, it definitely, you know, kind of started where Atonement left off, and it went in a darker direction. I think the
Right.
songs are much darker, much more focused in a lot of ways, much more to the point. Um, but yeah, I think Illaran captured exactly what we were looking for. He understood exactly what we wanted. He was a huge fan of the band and Andreas Marshall's work. And it was for him, he even said, he's like, oh, it's a cool way to kind of come full circle with your earlier records
Right.
covers and this one. And he fucking nailed it. And he captured just the hopelessness of what we were trying to convey with that cover.
Right.
So it worked, man, and I fucking love it. And he fucking knocked it out of the park, man. So
Fucking A, dude.
huge
Yeah.
props.
And
Yeah,
and also like you said, like if you were like trying to be more prepared for your release or whatever, the rollout and everything, your rollout was fucking beautiful, dude.
thanks, thank you, because we spent a lot of time, and Bob will appreciate that because he put a lot of time. Bob worked
Yeah.
a lot, coordinating the ads with the label, mocking up a lot of that stuff. He did all the videos. I mean, he filmed
Shout out to
and
Bob.
produced and edited all those 3 videos. I mean, that was all fucking Bob, man. So he was the one who really did a lot of that promo stuff.
Mm.
All the videos you saw with us talking about the album and editing, he did all of that,
And
man.
then you guys rolled out a store, which was killer.
Yeah, yeah. The store we did, a couple of years ago, but it was time.
Yeah.
People were only able to get our merch at the shows, and we decided, hey, make it available to the fans at a decent price.
Yeah.
Where they're not getting it through bootleggers or
Killer quality.
yeah. So so these are our designs. These are designs we get from our local guy that we've been using for like the last 30 years,
Right.
and from our good friend Oscar, who does a lot of our
Is that the
touring
same
with.
guy that printed the old incantation shirts that I went to go pick up with McEntee back in like 91 or some shit?
Yeah. Conti's in Mount Vernon, New York. Yep,
Okay.
yep. We've been
Yeah.
using him since the second demo.
Wow.
So if nothing, we are loyal. We have,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
everything, and even in the storyline that you told, it's like you went to Europe and you met dudes, and then like, like next thing you know, you're kind of touring with some of these people, whether it
sure.
be Grave or whatever. You met, Harris Johns, and then like he knows this artist, and like you guys are like super fucking loyal and straight to the point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we are. I mean,
You
I will.
build off your relationship so well.
Yeah, we are very loyal, sometimes to a fault. I mean, um,
It happens.
but I mean, we are loyal. I mean, if someone does right by us, and if they're just a good person, we are loyal to them.
Yeah.
Like Mike's a good example. Mike was printing shirts for us in '89. Mike and his brother Joe, and they've always done right by us. I
And
mean,
your studio too. You're
they're good
loyal
guys.
to your recording studio.
Paul Orfino. He's like a fifth member. I mean, Paul's like awesome, good friend. He's like a family member.
How
Paul.
many records now would since when was the
Um,
last time you I mean the first album you recorded with him?
we did 8 albums and 2 EPs with him.
Wow.
So we did everything from the third record till now. So eight
Wow.
eight full lengths with him. Yeah, I think we are the longest running return customer to
Yeah.
to Millbrook Sound Studios. And Zach Owen, I can't neglect him. I mean, he came into the mix around Majesty and Decay, production wise, and he's made those albums from Majesty forward all sound amazing.
Right.
So he kind of took us into the new era. So
Like
you can't
mastering or
mixing and mastering. So
okay.
Paul handled from Majesty forward. Paul just did the tracking and the recording, getting the sounds. Zach Oren is a guy who made Majesty and Kingdom and fucking Atonement and Acts of God and Providence all sound the way they sound,
Right.
And it took a couple of records to tweak it with him, but man, he fucking nailed it hard on Acts of God. He's great to work with. He's super pro, and he gets us. It always takes, I think, producers, some time to kind of get familiar with what the band wants, but it didn't
Right.
take him long, so we're happy. So we will continue to use
You
you.
guys always have a big fucking sound, man. I mean,
Well, thanks, man. I mean,
fuck.
that's in part to these guys. That's not our doing. That's these guys.
No, it's parts of you
Po-
too.
polishing the turd, if you know what I mean.
I mean, it's parts of you, obviously, but yeah, I mean, obviously, it takes a team or a village or
Sure.
whatever they say to
Yeah.
get together and do your
Back-
thing between the
back to the
art, the
village.
rollout, the label, the fucking,
Sure.
the recording style.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So
Agreed.
taken away from day one to now, I mean, is this your full time job? Immolation?
Now it is. It took almost close to 30 years. I mean,
Right.
I started to do this full time 2016.
Gotcha.
That's when I left my job officially. I moved up here with Shelly, and I've been here full time upstate New York and made the band my full time commitment. So
Killer.
we run the merch store, we take care of all the logistics, all the behind the scenes stuff. Pretty
Yeah.
much do everything for the band, all the business, everything. We don't have management or anything like that. We have
Right.
great agents, which I'll have to say, with AGI, Nick here in the US, and we have Luke from Doomstar in Europe, who are newer agents for us, but they're fucking awesome people, and we're just excited to have them, working with us. So we're fortunate in that regard, So we have, the important pieces of the puzzle in place, and we have good people. Helping us, you know what I'm saying, in our corner, which is, because again, you can't do it alone.
We got to deserve it. I mean, you guys are like, you rose to the top, man. I mean, like you.
Well, we're still climbing. It's always been a slow grow for us, but that's fine.
That's one good thing about Immolation, though, too. You guys didn't rush an album out every year. You know what I mean? Like, maybe to you thought at the time, like, we're not moving fast enough, but in reality, you made more of an impact with like releasing an album X amount of years where you wrote really good, strong music, got a killer fucking recording. Wow. And then once it came out, I was like, fuck, it just punches you in the face,
Well, that's cool. I mean, I hope that's a consensus with our fans. I mean, I hope it's been worth the wait. And I hope, from the feedback we get, and our fans are kind, and they're very, but they're always honest, and they'll tell us, I've of course had fans say, oh, I don't like this album as much, I don't like the drums on this, blah blah blah.
There's a lot of albums,
but it's fine though. I mean, it's cool to hear the feedback, but for the most part, I mean, our fans, are very loyal to us, just like we are loyal to, our fans and our people who are good to us. So we're very fortunate in that regard. We have a very dedicated and loyal fan base. Our fans are awesome, man. They
Listen,
truly are.
Maybe we could take a few questions from the fans. Does anybody have a question for Ross? Hey, Iris. Thanks for sharing always.
Hey,
Anybody got a question for Ross before we wrap this up? Yeah,
nailed it.
nailed it. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
It's gonna just take 1 second. Come to Miami already. Oscar Matter from Ceremonium says.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Oscar? Damn. Miami. I don't know if it's on the list. I think we're ending in Tampa because I think that's where Cannibals in their neck of the woods. So unfortunately, no Miami. I think we came close last time, or a few hours out. But hey, it's
Yeah,
metal, man. We're not
you
opposed to
gotta
driving.
drive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
Come
gotta
on.
fucking
Oscar
drive.
should know. He was from up
You
this
gotta drive
way.
for them, bro. You know that. Anybody got any questions on here? You friggin' come on, man. Can you play Rival the Imminent? Joe Pupo rules.
Rival the Eminent. Yeah, a lot of people like that song.
All right, Venner got a legitimate question. Favorite songs to play and the song you guys play every show.
Hey, Bill, what's up, man? Good question. Yeah, I mean, obviously, and I say this a lot too. It's always the newer album material that is
Right.
always the
The
most fun for us
forefront
to play
shit.
because that's always the most challenging because it's the freshest, it's the newest, and it's always the stuff you're most excited about playing because you haven't been playing it for fucking 30 years. You know what I'm saying? So, whereas some of these old songs, are like, like an old shoe, they're comfortable, they fit good, and you enjoy playing them, but they're not always the funnest to play,
Mm.
but that being said, we do have some older songs we love to play. We'll keep them in the set until like we have to say, all right, they're probably sick of this fucking song. Let's pull it out. So
So, or no one's moving,
yeah, yeah,
and you're like,
yeah,
you know.
exactly. So I enjoy playing now for the moment all the newer material, especially the newest of the newer songs that we haven't played live yet, the ones that I'm rehearsing.
All right,
Those I love because they're a challenge to me.
here's
I
another
like to
question.
play like let me see,
It
which
says,
one?
I posted a question earlier. Which one of the new bands are Ross liking these days?
Oh, fucking a ton. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so you know, I still enjoy playing Everlasting Fire,
Right.
Immolation off the first record.
I noticed that you guys
Yeah,
play Immolation.
I love certain songs off of that record are always gold. I love playing. We all love playing like Swarm of Terror off of Harnessing Ruin, believe it or not,
Yeah.
because it's just a fucking punch in the teeth kind of song. It goes over great live. It's a burner, but it's like short and to the point. It has a big epic middle section.
Mm.
So there's certain songs you enjoy for different reasons. I enjoy, like, I know the fans love Father You're Not a Father. I love this song, but I'm not always a fan of playing it because we played it so much, and it's a longer song, and so there's certain thing. Unholy Cult's another one. Love the song. It's a little long to play live, but fans love that one.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's kind of where we are with I think the band collectively loves playing the new material live. So I could probably
I
speak for
understand that. It's your new album. I mean,
yeah.
it's probably you got the most fire under you,
Yeah, but yeah, like we were talking, Roy and I had this talk off
Yep.
the air a while ago. But like we mentioned, Full of Hell, we mentioned Blood Incantation, we mentioned Mortuous, we mentioned Necrot. I mentioned some of the northwestern bands, like Mortiferum, who we had out with us.
Right.
I fucking love and Witch Vomit and Cerebral Rot. That Witch Vomit EP, the last thing that they put out, the 4-song EP, was just fucking crushing, dude. I
Oh
had to
yeah.
buy that on vinyl and CD and just get all versions of
Oh,
that.
Completist. Another
Yeah,
one.
yeah. So so stuff like that, I will go out of my way to buy and support, just because I think bands like that are embracing the death metal that we came up enjoying and loving. Just a sick guttural.
Yeah.
But there's so many bands. Tomb Mold from Canada, another one. That last album, was it Planetary Clairvoyance, I think it was called. Crushing, just fucking. I saw them in Maryland a couple of years ago. Just
Right.
fucking sick. Imperial Triumphant, fucking sick band live. Completely different from the stuff I just mentioned, but doing their own thing.
Right.
So those are just some of the younger bands that are just fucking killing it right now. You know
It's
what I'm
nice to
saying?
hear those names coming out of an old school guy's mouth. I have to say.
But what I find with the younger, like all those bands that we've had the opportunity to tour with, they're really connected to our roots as well.
They are.
So like here's a good example. One of the first couple of shows on that February run we did with Mortiferum and Imperial Triumphant. After one of the shows, we're all loading out, and it was a good vibe. Everybody was getting along, and the drummer from Mortiferum, Alex, had on an Abhorrence demo shirt, and I almost fucking hit the floor. I was like, "Holy shit, kid!" I said, first of all, props that you even know who this fucking band is, but super props for even having a demo shirt. I said that is so fucking cool. So my point is, these younger bands like have done their homework and they're
Yes.
inspired by a lot of the same shit we were inspired. So to me, that's fucking awesome, man. I
Yeah,
just love that. It's a cool moment for us old guys to kind of see the new guard like doing it right and taking it forward in a
it
good
is.
way. That's why that Full of Hell, Blood Incantation, Mortuous Tour is to me like it represents like the future of our scene right there, like
Mm.
those bands right there. Three different bands all doing their own thing, but kind of taking their cues from the earlier scene and making it their own, but in a
Yeah.
good way. I
Yeah.
love
Shout out
that.
to Sanguisugabog as well.
Hell
Um,
yeah, yeah. Fuck yeah. I met the singer at Vegas. Fucking awesome dude, man. Really cool
Here's
guys.
a good question from Francisco. Ross, how have you been able to take care of your voice over 30 years? Most of his contemporaries haven't been able to.
Good question. I don't know. It's always a mystery to me how I do what I do. I just do it. I think for me, I think a big part of that hurdle is prepping.
Mm,
So I don't like I'm already singing these songs, this set like a month before I even hit that stage. So it's like a well-oiled machine.
right.
If I don't like, so for example, when I haven't practiced for about a month after a tour and I kind of step away and just kind of clear my head, jump back into it, those first few days of singing are always rough for me. Like I feel
Mm,
it. It's hard. It's not where it should be. So, it takes me a day or two to kind of fucking lock in. But that's it. I don't know. I've never abused my voice. I never smoked cigarettes. I never really drank. Was a drinker. I
yeah.
wasn't big on alcohol, as you know. So I'll have a beer once in a while. But I was never a huge partier, so that probably helped. I didn't destroy it in that way. So anyway,
Yeah, you weren't huge partiers. I remember you came to
yeah.
party with us and only Neil Bobak had a beer, you know?
Yeah, so we were kind of fucking nerdy back. But anyway, so I don't have any, I don't have any proper answers for that other than maybe just
Understandable.
practice.
It's a good question, though. Thanks,
Yeah,
Francisco.
totally,
I love how Ross still gets excited when he talks about metal. Hell
totally.
yeah, dude.
We all do. We're like 15-year-old kids when we
Black
get on
Bridge,
these.
Venner, you remember.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Venner was there.
we love what we do.
Carney
We love.
Death fucking crew.
That's right, man.
Between them, Spring Valley Death Crew, right?
Yeah.
Were you
Yep.
kind of close to those guys because of Will or
But same difference. I mean, you guys were over the George Washington Bridge. They were over the Tappan Zee Bridge. So
gotcha?
we had a bridge to cross for both of those crews. So
Yeah, yeah. And also over time, I mean, it definitely Immolation's name, fuck, dude, worldwide. I mean, you play in Brazil or you play in Mexico. You guys play in
yeah,
Australia, correct?
yeah. But a lot of that stuff you just mentioned came much later. I mean,
Right,
we had correspondence from a lot of these places even back as early as the 80s, but we didn't really get to go to South America, for the first time until like I think with the you mentioned us with Incantation down
right.
there. That was like the first time we went down there. We've been down there maybe one other time since then. Australia, we've been to
This is from
twice.
there too.
Yeah,
Um,
Australia we've been to twice, and only more recently in the last like 5 to 8 years. So
right.
these are all new places we've gone. Asia and Japan. First time was in 2019. So a lot of firsts for us. So
I
it's
like those big ass billboards. I wish I got a thing of that where it had
that
like a
was
billboard. It was in Turkey or something.
no, that was in Indonesia.
Indonesia. Okay.
And that was crazy, man. When they picked us up from the airport, they're like, "We're gonna take you to see something cool," and we went over
Fuck.
there, and it was at this intersection, and it was fucking huge. It was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
It's like a
I mean,
60-foot billboard you
yeah,
got.
we certainly had no reason being up on that fucking thing, if you know what I mean.
No, that was cool,
But it was
dude.
cool though. It was cool to see
It
though.
just shows that. I mean, Indonesia is a sick metal country anyway. So
Fuck yeah.
cool, man. All right, Ross. So I mean, I think you answered a lot of questions here. Let's see if there's anyone else that has anything relevant to say. No. So
Cool.
anyway,
Awesome,
thank you for
man.
the interview, bro. I appreciate it.
That
Like,
was
I think we went
awesome.
over a lot of the history and talked about a lot of stuff that Immolation did and the
I think
roots
so.
of you and Immolation.
So
It's
great.
exciting for me to hear about some of these things because I didn't know all this.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, it's always fun for me to talk and reminisce, as everybody knows, because I get real chatty when we start to talk about this shit. But yeah, it was fun. I know we were talking earlier before the interview, and you had, yeah, hopefully, but it went fine, man. You fucking killed it. Nailed
Yeah.
it. Nailed
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah. I wing it. Like I fucking just come on. Everyone that watches this knows that I come on here and I just fucking wing it. You know.
You were well prepared with your flyers and your visuals. Yeah,
I
you
did my
fucking nailed
homework.
it. You did good. There was
Yeah, I come in
wasn't
with my
no
homework
lack
done.
of prep there. I give you props for that, Roy.
I mean, I know there's a certain amount that I know. There's a certain amount that we talked about doing an interview, so I had aside. And
Sure,
then there's
sure.
a certain amount that, I learned right here with you, you know?
But you've been part of our story in a lot of ways from the beginning as well. So
Right.
not only do you know us as the band, but you know us as people too.
Yeah,
So
I was
that
even
helps.
talking my daughter, I'm a grandfather now, but my daughter was over the house and
Grandpa
I
Roy.
mentioned it offhand. I said, "Yeah, my friend Ross." I was like, "When you were born, Immolation played CBGBs, and you shouted out to my daughter. You said this goes out to Roy Fox and his daughter Rebecca, and I think
Oh
you played like,
wow.
uh, you're with God now, or you played something like satanic, or
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
trying to
know."
play away from God,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah. You're away from God
And I told
now.
her, I was like, "Yeah, you mentioned some like satanic type song title." She goes,
That's
"It
fucking
figures."
but I meant it in the best possible way.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
Away from God, you
Yeah,
know?
that's right. That's right. Away from all the constraints of the bullshit of
Yeah.
organized religion.
It was cool,
Be a
man.
free thinker. So that's awesome, man. That's fucking cool to hear, man. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure. It was a pleasure
Cool, man.
being here with you tonight.
And thank you for anyone that entered the chat and
Yeah,
threw
good to.
something out there, you know?
Yeah, thanks
Roy's
for all
been
the.
there since day one. No doubt. Thank you,
Absolutely.
brother.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you guys, all our old friends for chiming in.
Oh
It
yeah.
was a pleasure to be here. Great questions, everybody. Thanks.
Oh yeah, bro. All right, guys. Thank you, man. Tune in at 9 o'clock. I'm gonna restart the podcast, and we're gonna have a couple guests on. And if Ross wants to join, I'll send you an invite. We're gonna have a couple other guests on. We're gonna play some
Oh, okay.
music, and
I'm
then
gonna
this was just
probably.
the interview version, you know.
I gotta jump off actually now. So
All right, my brother.
I was going till 8, so I know my girl's upstairs waiting. We got shit to
Hurry
do.
up. We're gonna watch
All
the
right, brother.
goddamn fucking Star Wars.
You know it, man.
All right, Ross. Thank you, bro.
Roy, good to talk to you, brother. Be good.
All right, there we have it. So, Death Metal Podcast. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. Again, I'm going to be going live in about 45 minutes from now. If you guys want to hang around and play some music, we're going to have a couple guests actually because I played someone's music last week, and now he wants to come on and he wanted to be a guest on here. So I was like, why not? You know. So I appreciate everybody. If you want, like I said, we were just doing this interview solo. I wanted Ross to just have his own interview, and I figured it'd be better that way. And then maybe do like our freestyle ass fucking. I don't think it's gonna go for 11 hours, but our freestyle death metal podcast. So if you guys want to tune in about 45 minutes or so, I have it set for 9. So thanks a lot for tuning in to the interview with Immolation and Ross Dolan. I appreciate everybody that supports Death Metal Podcast. Check out our stream in about 45 minutes, bro. Thank you, man. Cheers, as Barney would say.